Good evening, my fellow Americans. This is your President Samuel Ronan speaking, and today is another day of streaming. Today we are going to be talking about, current events in America, and my continued inability to consistently have good lighting. No, we have a lot to cover. Just like every week, there is always something new and more imaginatively brazen happening in the United States of America by this administration. And so we need to cover it. Unfortunately, not all of it is great news. Some of it is decent, but most of it is dystopian nightmares or just tragedy. And that is no less true than with our first video, which covers the ongoing tragedy of the Georgia woman, Adriana Smith, who was forced to be kept alive as an incubator for her unborn child after she was killed by the state of Georgia. So, with that being said, there are going to be more interesting videos that aren't as depressing. There's going to be videos that are actually somewhat inspiring towards the end. But bear with us. We will get through this one day at a time. I also would like to give a quick shout out to Anna. Also, hello. Anna has been helping me reach out to the interns for our Ronan for Congress campaign, and apparently her efforts, as well as Allie, who's also been working with us behind the scenes, has been doing fantastic work. We have a lot of interested parties coming to the campaign, so you might be able to see us in more ways than one. So stay tuned. Ronan 26, let's go. All right. I am still very much so sick. My throat's giving out on me. I'm nauseous and I have back pain. So we'll see how long we go through this stream, but I think we'll get pretty far. We've been trooping along this entire time, so I think we can make it up for sure. So without further ado, let's get to the tale, the tragedy of Adriana Smith.
Back, everyone. We have an update tonight on the baby Chance, the infant at the center of a heartbreaking story that we've been reporting on that began long before he was born.
That's right. His mother is Adriana Smith, and she was declared brain dead early in her pregnancy. Doctors kept her on life support until Chance could be delivered. Well, Adriana Smith, she was just 8 weeks pregnant in February when she suffered severe blood clots and was declared brain dead. Her family says doctors kept her alive because of Georgia's abortion law. Now, baby Chance, he was delivered on June 13th by emergency C-section and has remained in the NICU ever since. Smith was removed from life support days later. Well, Chance's grandmother recently posting a GoFundMe. He now weighs 11 pounds and is still in the NICU with no timeline on when he's going to be able to go home. But she says that he will soon be moved to another hospital for more specialized care. In her message, she thanked everyone for their prayers and asked for continued support, saying God has the final say-so.
Absolutely.
This morning, heartbreaking updates from a family.
So, I just want to point out that Georgia kept a brain-dead woman alive for 4 months. For 4 months. And then had to do an emergency C-section anyway. After 4 months, meaning a 6-month... That's the end of the second trimester when they finally did the C-section. So this wasn't even remotely close to, she was brain dead and they kept her alive for a month or so. No, this was 4 months to force the baby to continue, the fetus to go through the trimester stages into from fetus to baby, and then finally C-sectioned it and now is struggling to stay alive. All because of the anti-abortion law. So explain to me how a brain-dead woman being forced to gesticulate, or I don't know which version of that word is the right way to pronounce it, but how brazen. It's like, well, if this woman dies, her baby dies, then that would be abortion, so we'd have to charge her with murder, or the hospital with murder? That does that make any fucking sense? Gestate. Okay, thank you. Gestation period. That just doesn't make sense no matter how you try to explain it, no matter how you try to justify it. Forcing a brain dead person to gestate for 4 months or for as long as humanly possible because that would somehow result in an abortion. Meanwhile, the thing that isn't going to be mentioned in this news clip either, is the fact that the hospital is charging Adriana Smith's family for this, right? The state of Georgia demanded it, and the state of Georgia is not paying for it. And this is hundreds of thousands of dollars of medical bills that this unfortunate baby is occurring because the state opted to turn Adriana Smith into a living incubator. Although living is, of course, a stretch on that particular language, which just goes back to the point that we were all making about these heinous abortion laws. They are inhumane, they are anti-woman, and they are dangerous as all hell and devastate, completely deny body autonomy for women. And that's just not acceptable. That's just not acceptable. I do not stand for that in the slightest. And honestly, one of the first things, I'm going to have a very busy first day, aren't I, in Congress, because we are going to have to propose legislation that undoes all of this nonsense, because we cannot allow the states to harm women for some misguided belief that they're saving lives or children or anything else, when they literally, the first chance they got to use this law was to force a black woman to be a semi-living womb for a child that they couldn't even bring to full term. Because guess what? Medical science doesn't work that way. So no, this is abhorrent and tragic at the same time. Tragic for Adriana Smith and her family, and abhorrent for the absolute overreach of the state of Georgia. And arguably any government. But specifically in this case, the state of Georgia. A flesh incubator. You're absolutely right. Which, and like you said, it is also dangerous for the baby. Because again, if the flesh incubator can't, then you end up with this situation. What if she started deteriorating, or the artificial life machines stopped keeping her going 2 weeks into it? Then what? It would still be murder? It would still be X, Y, and Z? No. Once she was brain dead, that should have been it. That should have been the end of the story. There was no salvaging this pregnancy, as we are seeing. And what's going to be even worse is if this story continues to progress in a month, 2 weeks, days, and we find out that this poor child has actually died. And then what? All of these efforts were for nothing, and then the family is still left with the bill? I hope the survivors of Adriana Smith sue the ever-living God out of Georgia. I hope they get the entire state's operating budget for how cruelty and the sheer level of cruelty and malevolence that the state has engaged against a black woman, which again, Georgia is a historical slave state. So it cannot be stressed enough, the optics here, of a prior slave state forcing a black woman to give birth when she was already clinically dead. That's the future of these abortion laws. That honestly makes Handmaid's Tale look tame in comparison. We are somehow worse than dystopian fiction, which in of itself was painting a picture of the absolute pinnacle of cruelty of the state and misogyny in a system. So, let's see if there's anything else.
Family that blames Georgia's heartbeat law for the death of their daughter.
Adriana Smith's baby boy remains in the hospital now nearly 6 months after he was born. Smith's mother posted the update on their GoFundMe page, writing in part, quote, "It's holiday season and I'm very down. Chance is now 11 pounds and is still in the NICU unit and will not be coming home anytime soon." Chance Newkirk was born in June. His mother was brain dead at the time following a medical emergency. Her family claims she was left on life support for months so she could give birth and not break Georgia's heartbeat law. The legislation bans abortions once a fetal heartbeat is detected.
And a fetal heartbeat is not a heartbeat. Let's just be very clear that a fetal heartbeat is an electrical pulse of cells. So, and if you don't believe me, cardiac tissue. That is not a heartbeat. And even if the heart forms within the next few weeks, 7, 8, 9, 10, the fact that it's still largely a clump of cells and that it would require being in the womb of a woman in order to continue to develop is, again, taking away the body autonomy of the woman. And again, the first thing that... Before about week 8 of pregnancy, a doctor may refer to the fetus as an embryo. Cardiac tissue starts to pulse at around 5 to 6 weeks, registering as a heartbeat on the ultrasound, though the heart has not developed. It may be possible to see the first visible sign of the embryo, known as the fetal pull, at this stage. Meaning, you can't even visibly see it, right? Because we're talking microscopic. And by the 10th week is when the heart is actually fully developed, which again has nothing to do with science. Or I'm sorry, this is the science. The law has nothing to do with it. And these arguments that if this was a living, breathing child or capable of giving life, they wouldn't be waiting for almost double the amount of time to actually do fetal anatomy, including the heart. Right? So it's a clump of cells. It's cardiac tissue, and then maybe the heart forms, sure. But again, we're talking at the microscopic level, right? We're not talking about a full-size beating heart. We're talking about something that's still very much so microscopic. Okay. The size of an embryo. 1 to 2 millimeters. Half an inch. Okay? Just to, and I know we're going a little bit into the weeds here. So this is a baby at week 4. This is a baby at week 8, which was a 1 1/4 inch long. Adriana Smith was forced to literally be a zombie for an 1 1/4 inch long entity that had no chance of survival on its own whatsoever. And by the time it actually turns into a fetus, it's actually the 12th week. And guess what? It's still only 3.5 inches big. Meaning, at no point in time is this anything remotely resembling a human being. The actual medical science, this is not life. This is the development of life. This is eventually going to be life. But this is nothing remotely close to being life as we know it. Nothing that could sustain itself. You remove this from the body, it dies. And forcing a body to be on life support for something that is also essentially on life support is beyond cruel, beyond malevolent, beyond just irredeemable cruelty. And the fact that it was done to a black woman in Georgia in one of the first of its kind cases is absolutely abhorrent. So no, I don't support the heartbeat bill. I don't support anti-abortion measures at all. And the science would seem to back me up on that. Did I leave my tape measure up here? I did. Three and a half inches. Right? This ice pack is bigger. My cell phone is bigger. Right? And it's 1.5 ounces. So it would like... It's probably the weight of the cigar and smaller. That's not life. And forcing people to believe, or forcing governments, or forcing women into abiding by that it's just unethical. It's immoral. It's cruel, and it is unusual. In fact, if anything, this is cruel and unusual punishment, even though it's not for a crime at all. Of course, in Georgia, being a black woman apparently is considered a crime, but you know, we'll go off somewhere else. Suffice to say, you could not convince me that this is acceptable. an inch and a quarter, 2.5 inches, 3.5 inches after 3 total months, that's justification to keep a person alive forcefully when there is going to be, as we are seeing, very little chance of the child surviving or being able to develop naturally or well or in a healthy manner after the fact. It's honestly the Nazi scientists that experimented on Jewish captives were less cruel than this. And that's saying a lot, considering all the shit that they did to the Jewish captives. This goes beyond the pale. To force a woman to be an incubator despite being clinically dead. Unbelievable. And honestly, the precedent that sets means that the state can just allow women to die and impregnate them, and as long as they can keep them alive long enough for the pregnancy to come to term, it's good to go. We can get free soldiers, we can get free workers, we can get free whatever else we want. It is an extremely sickening, slippery slope that must be brought to heel. Now then, on a different note, I guess the FBI, Kash Patel.
Turning now to the Brown University shooting and the hunt for the suspect after 2 students were tragically killed in circumstances that we still do not yet understand. Ryan and I covered the FBI's failures yesterday with the release of a so-called person of interest. The name was leaked to the news media, and it was a huge screw-up by the FBI. Trump are now under fire by Kash Patel's handling of the case, defending Kash Patel, and actually casting blame on the local police department. Let's take a listen.
Has Kash Patel told you why it's been so difficult for the FBI to identify who the shooter is?
Well, it's always difficult. So far, we've done a very good job of doing it with Charlie, with, the various times this has happened. They've done it in pretty much record time. But you really have to ask the school a little bit more about that because, this was a school problem. They had their own guards, they had their own police, they had their own everything. But you'd have to ask that question really to.
So, in this lineup of brazen stupidity, cruelty, and just government corruption, Trump said it's the college's issue that active shooters occurred on campus, which is nuts because he did just bring up the fact that there were guards and that there were officers on campus, which then further kind of goes to the talking point, which we have all been bringing up, is that these resource officers don't prevent shit. They can only react. Because active shooters, it's not difficult to get on a campus with a gun. Most campuses are open to the public. And there is no perimeter. And there is not enough security personnel to do a full perimeter search on the whole campus. There's not enough cameras and enough people to monitor the cameras. And we wouldn't want to create a system like that anyway, because then it's no longer a school. It's a prison where education happens to happen. So clearly the issue isn't the campuses. It's clearly not the lack or over appearance of security. It's the fact that people are going on killing sprees. Because of whatever reasons. Some of it's white supremacy, some of it's misogyny, some of it is hurting their feelings getting hurt, and some of it's depression, which are largely societal, cultural, or medical. So it's almost as if we have a sick society and active shootings are a symptom of a sick society, much like was evinced in 1984 and Fahrenheit 451. All of these dystopian books that cover a sickened and dying society who no longer values life. And it's coming from the president himself, admitting it, that they can't stop this issue and that they're going to pass the blame anyway. Again, you don't resolve active shooting by throwing more guns at it. You don't throw hammers at problems that aren't nails. And very few of our nation's problems actually require hammers, because very few of our nation's problems are nails. An overwhelming majority of our problems using the tool, I guess, analogy, would probably be like a hex screw or a bolt. Just needs an Allen key to get it right into place. But we don't have the right tools for the jobs. No, instead we just treat everything as a hammer. Oh, we need to weld this angle bracket? Hammer. Oh, we need to screw in this bolt? Hammer. Oh, we need to add a washer? Well, I guess we'll just hammer the head until it flattens out, and then hammer another nail on top of it. We aren't resolving the issues of our nation that are needing to be resolved. We are beating them to death and hoping they go away. And unfortunately, when it comes to right-wing extremism and active shootings and just, I mean, Christian nationalism and all of the other problems that we're dealing with, never mind the economic, the healthcare, and the education issues that we're struggling with, we are treating them all as if they can be resolved through force and violence or threat of force and violence. That's simply not going to work because that's not how they can get resolved. That's just not how that works. Yeah, I've walked around college campuses. Honestly, part of my campaign is going to involve me walking around college campuses anyway. And do I get stopped and searched by campus police or security? No. They probably wouldn't even recognize me as not a student. Especially since I probably have a clipboard and flyers with me. It's absolutely idiotic to suggest that the school shootings can be resolved through more use of force. And the fact that this clown is even saying that out loud, it just goes to prove that point.
To the school, not to the FBI. We came in after the
officials. I mean, remember, look, I mean, I do think that the local officials haven't necessarily handled themselves the best here, but let's be very clear. The FBI is the one who screened that so-called person of interest. They're the ones who touted it on social media as if it was some sort of victory. Now, speculation remains about who leaked the name of that individual who, again, we are not going to say his name. This is a, decorated U.S. Army veteran member of the Honor Guard whose name was besmirched in the public, life dissected disgustingly, I would add, as a result of their handling. And by the way, just in case, I know we'll get to there in a bit, but the current director of the FBI has an interview airing today with his girlfriend about their love story and how they met on Katie Miller's podcast. Yes, I know it was probably filmed earlier, but I'm sorry, just not really what I think that the director of the FBI should ever be doing out there in public. I mean, it's just...
I mean, that's a very valid point. Why the fuck is the FBI director doing a publicity interview with his girlfriend anyway? Who the fuck cares? Nobody cares. When has anybody cared what the FBI director is doing with their personal lives or anything? Never. And at most, it would be the president that anybody gives a shit about. And even then, I don't remember there being any exposés on Biden's relationship, Obama's relationship, Clinton's relationship, Bush's relationship. I don't recall there being any of that nonsense. But the other point that he was making, Sager, is the fact that Kash Patel was very quick to throw a veteran under the bus, a decorated veteran at that, when there was no evidence to do it. And yet this FBI is supposed to be trusted. This FBI is somehow keeping our country safe and going after the bad guys and not just being the clown show that it very clearly is. Like, no, this is definitely unacceptable behavior. This is also par for the course with this administration. Hey, let's murder fishermen off the coast of Venezuela first and ask questions later. But we will go through the book, by the lines, by the numbers, by capturing this oil tanker, because the oil tanker actually has stuff that we want on it. Same thing with this FBI investigation. They botch it left, right, and center. For every investigation that Kash Patel has been a part of, it has been a shit show from the onset. They're blaming people. They're coming up with wild accusations and stories that just aren't true at any point in time. And we, the people, are supposed to take this seriously.
Disgusting. It's shocking. And I think that this does highlight just the sheer amount of incompetence within this bureau and its law enforcement, and how, they continue to tell us how these are the best and the brightest. And we are watching a shooter who has now escaped justice for more than 48 hours. Brown University, a campus which has now reportedly been papered in 800 cameras, Crystal. Very few clear photographs of the person of suspect that have been released yet to the public. Here is that specific question being posed to local officials last night at a news conference. Let's take a listen.
Brown University is the most camera-ridden, most conscious piece of real estate in Rhode Island, and yet there seems to be little or no video evidence outside of that clip. You know, respecting the investigation, is there a lot more video that we're just not able to see yet because of the ongoing investigation, or is there simply no video?
So what we shared with you the other day is what we have that we could share, and then we'll continue to, again, we're continuing to collect evidence. As we speak, we have detectives out there trying to continue to find. So I don't want to tell you that there's no more video because we might find something within the next few minutes. So yes, it's possible, but what we gave you the other day is what we have.
We're given...
And that just goes back to the point that more surveillance, more security, more police officers aren't the solution, because you will never have enough surveillance and you will never have enough police and security to actually secure a facility from someone who wants to cause it harm. You just can't. I mean, this was proven in, the movie just went off, The Purge. Literally, The Purge, the first movie of The Purge, said it himself. The guy who got murdered was the guy who sold security systems to rich people so that they wouldn't get robbed during the Purge. And he even said, it's like, if you want to get in bad enough, you can. Like, there is no real stopping it. Yeah, it'll stop small arms fire and it'll stop somebody with a crowbar. But if you have the right machinery, like a truck and a winch, you can absolutely tear these things down. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. Same thing with security systems, right? If you have a camera facing here and a camera facing here, it's going to overlap like this, right? But where is it not overlapping? This entire triangle right here. And it'll go over here, and presumably it'll cover, but it might even break out this triangle, right? There are blind spots, no matter what you do with security, especially if they're static. It's even easier to determine what the blind spots might be. If it's roving, then you just have to time it. It's over here, bam, easy to go across. And then again, you have to monitor these cameras. Okay, so what if you have 10 people armed to the teeth? I'm talking props, okay? And hardcore just going to town. Like, we're going to town. And the security guard, it happens, there's two of them, because there has to always be two, or there should always be two. But let's just say there's only the one, and he goes to a restroom break right when those 15 people, 10, 15 people walk by the camera and light it all up from there. You just don't have enough. You could have 15 people monitoring each of those 800 cameras, and 15 people have 30 eyes. But most people can only look at one thing at a time, right? So you still only have 15 cameras that can be looked at once if each video, or if each camera feed had its own video frame. That's just, you would need 800 personnel staring at this camera at all times. And people don't have that kind of attention span. I don't give a damn who you are. So unless you're willing to go to that level, which nobody is, nobody should be, at any rate, you're still not going to resolve the issue, because there are still going to be blind spots. So there is no perfect security system. At least not in our time. Not until we get involved in quantum security measures, which we clearly don't have. And we're nowhere close to having. But even then, is that going to stop somebody from wanting to shoot up a school? No. Why? Because it's an illness of the head or the heart, right? The mind or the soul. That's the sickness that drives people to commit these atrocities. And whether it's a depression, whether it's because they were picked on, or whether it's because they're racist and have been radicalized, or whether it's some other reason, until you address those underlying reasons, and again, not normalize them, and allow access to get treatment, right? Make treatment much, 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 much more accessible. And then, of course, not societally taboo, because again, we treat mental health care as if you have, leprosy or something. We treat healthcare of any form as a weakness, as a failure of the individual. And that's another reason why these atrocities occur. It's also why the right-wing extremism continues to rise. It's why Christian nationalism continues to rise, because people yearn for community, compassion, and empathy, and they can only get it by othering others, or by actually finding community, as is the case with leftists. So until you can break the reasons why right-wing extremists end up becoming right-wing extremists and the societal factors that encourage it, then these are only going to continue and get worse. And a final point, it was either there were more school shootings or more active shootings than days of the year. More active shootings than days of the year 2025. Okay, so mass shootings, definitely. Oh, it says mass killings fall to the lowest level in 20 years, except they have outnumbered the annual days. So, which is it? Mass shootings outnumber annual days in the U.S. Children are missing school due to measles. On top of that, go figure. 391. Oh, and I guess they have been going down. Well, that's good to know at least. So mass shootings went up during the peak of COVID. That's crazy. And then it died down again. But we're still having more than days of the year, which is, of course, extremely disturbing. And then we still have the most deaths per firearm. And then, of course, reactivity. So, mass killings hit a 20-year low. No, that's just false. Because this is still higher than 2018 and 2017 for that matter. So this guy is just straight up lying. And that's the other problem. We have fake news. Unfortunately, it's coming from the conservative bloc of reporting. Where did my other cable go? All right. Actually, I should probably just drink something. All right. Simply Steve, welcome to the stream. Jake Lang and the January 6ths are threatening online that they are going to storm the prison in Colorado where Tina Peters is being held on Jan 31st and break her out. The Colorado governor said he is going to have the Colorado National Guard surround the prison on the 31st. And has the state AG working on state-level terrorist threats charges against Jake Lang. That's gnarly. I don't think that's covered in our stream, though. That is certainly Jake Lang threatens to break out Tina Peters. I guess we got Facebook. Is there a video about it? I guess not. Who is Jake Lang? Because this is the Colorado news. She's trying to get the Trump pardon. Shocking. Well, if you find a video on it, we can certainly watch it because that would be relevant to today's stream topics. Anywho, all of that to say that yes, any school shooting, any mass shooting is a tragedy. But the FBI and this administration botching it and making it an absolute clown show does nothing to address the tragedy. And again, not addressing the symptoms, or I'm sorry, only addressing the symptoms or the collateral damage of the issues doesn't actually resolve them. And that's what we need to be focusing on. Speaking of,
This morning,
allegedly a left-wing extremist group was going to blow up a building somewhere, and the FBI got wind of that and brought it to a close. So I don't buy the fact at all that a left-wing extremist group would be doing violence anyway. For one, the last time we saw left-wing activists shoot up an ICE detention facility, they had a van full of flak vests that they didn't wear and fired shots against the building on its side, against the walls, until somebody fired back against them, and then they immediately surrendered. Like, none of that sounds legitimate. Like, if you're going to commit an act of terrorism, you're not going to stop halfway through. You commit to the bit, unfortunately. Like, that's just the nature of how these things go. So, let's hear it.
the Justice Department says it's foiled a major coordinated terrorist plot.
These bombs were to blow up at the same time on midnight this New Year's Eve.
4 people now in custody suspected of planning to fill backpacks with pipe bombs and set them off near at least 5 businesses across Southern California on New Year's Eve.
The plan stated that the IEDs would be complex pipe bombs.
Officials say the group was testing explosives in the Mojave Desert Friday. Video released by investigators shows the suspects not long before they were arrested.
It strikes me this is another undercover operation potentially. In other words, there was at least an agent or an informant in with this group, because how would you know to run aerial surveillance unless you had somebody on the ground telling you?
What I really like about this is the guy said, how would you know to run aerial surveillance over here unless it was an undercover act? Or false flag. Something manufactured to give the FBI a win, or this administration, more importantly, a win. Because clearly this administration is struggling for wins, because now they're getting accused of crimes against humanity and war crimes in the Caribbean, which they are, and the crimes against humanity by ICE terrorizing Latin groups, which, again, they are, and the fact that Kash Patel cannot seem to get out of his own fucking way, which he can't. So now they have to manufacture a really cut and dry win for the FBI by manufacturing this attack. Or, like he said, maybe it was a legitimate group, but they had the informant or whatever else. So no, it doesn't add up. It really doesn't.
That was about to occur.
Investigators say the suspects, led by 30-year-old Andre Carroll, are members of the Turtle Island Liberation Front, described as a far-left, anti-government, anti-capitalist network who were planning to bomb the logistics centers of 2 American companies.
Turtle Island Liberation Front, which, if you turn it into an acronym, is TILF. Really? TILF? TILF is the name, the acronym that you finally caught? TILF. And it was 4 people? TILF was an organization of 4 people that were going to engage in violent extremist acts. Now, granted, the top stories are going to cover that aspect of it. Oh, and now there's a 5th person. Of course, Trantifa. Yeah. So now we're finding trans terrorists. We're finding throughout all of history, all of the extremist activities were right-wing groups. Until just now, where now all of a sudden they're coming out of the woodwork as left-wing. Outstanding. 1 second. I have to make a note real quick. Okay. Anywho. Turtle Island Liberation Front Quartet from Al Jazeera. What I don't understand, is if this, where would this group, they had a desert meeting. a small social media following on Facebook. Okay, I didn't know this part. The term Turtle Island is used by some indigenous peoples to describe North America in a way that reflects its existence outside the colonial boundaries. Right. So, activists affiliated with the group have previously organized campaigns against detentions and deportations. Now that sounds like left-wing activism. That's what a left-wing group would actually do, is organize. Yeah, they might throw rocks at cops, or they might spray paint buildings and such, but they're not going to make pipe bombs. And if these four did, then I just find that exceedingly difficult to believe that it is legitimate. But hey.
Which included plans to target ICE agents and vehicles with pipe bombs. Carroll stated that those plans would, quote, take some of them out and scare the rest.
The four are charged with conspiracy and possession of an unregistered destructive device.
And the FBI says a fifth person, possibly linked to the same group, was arrested in New Orleans, allegedly planning a separate attack. Now, if convicted, the suspects could face up to 15 years in prison.
I mean, I guess they could have been a bunch of Facebook activists that, again, egged each other on, but I find that extremely hard to believe. I find it very hard to believe that you go from protesting and shouting at officers and agents and, you know, throwing paint and water balloons at them to going and making a pipe bomb to try and take out agents. Like, that just... And then the fact that there was perfect evidence on the individuals, perfect evidence with their, like, caught red-handed. There are very few crimes that are ever that easy to button up and package with a nice red bow. And that's what makes it all the more suspicious, because how many right-wing attacks have there been? How many terrorist attacks have there been? How many domestic attacks have there been that the evidence comes out that we were monitoring them, but we could never find real evidence, or, wow, we had no understanding that this was going to happen, and then when we went through their stuff, we found an entire, you know, laboratory full of this stuff. How often does the FBI catch the perpetrators red-handed with a smoking gun? The only times that ever happens is in television and movies. Every once in a while in written media, like books and such. Very rarely, if ever, is it in real life. That's my main takeaway, is that that is such an unrealistically lucky and successful sequence of events that should bring you to question and doubt the validity of what is being claimed. Especially considering this FBI is no stranger to lying and fabricating stories in the first place. Anyway. Democracy Now! This is Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman.
As the Trump administration expands...
What? You didn't... Okay. You know what, Amy? You keep messing with me on how you interact with stuff here.
Its immigration crackdown around the country. President Trump's making it easier for a select few to obtain a U.S. visa. Earlier this week, Trump officially launched a program that provides a pathway for wealthy non-citizens to receive expedited permission to live and work in the U.S. For $1 million payment, visitors can obtain a Trump Gold Card that promises to fast-track U.S. residency applications in record time. The administration says it'll soon offer a $5 million Trump Platinum Card, allowing visitors to also avoid paying some U.S. taxes. Meanwhile, new U.S. Customs and Border Protection rules published this week would require visitors from 42 countries on the visa waiver program to provide up to 5 years of their social media history, along with telephone numbers, email addresses, and biometric data, including DNA, face, fingerprint, and iris scans. We're joined now by Chev de la...
Honestly, just Are those millionaires that are going to be paying for the $1 million card or the platinum card going to have to go through all that nonsense? Or is it just the poor people from the 42 countries? And I thought it was visa exemptions, right? So 42 countries with visa exemptions. Wow, that was a huge typo. So 42 countries. These are the countries in the visa waiver program. Do you notice anything about those countries on the visa waiver program? Correct, they are our allies. That is the entire European Union, Argentina, Australia, I think that's the Philippines, Japan, South Korea, and I honestly don't know off the top of my head what that one is. And, well, that's not France, but that must be Guinea then. And Iceland, right? And was I right about, oh, Chile. I thought that was Argentina. No, this must be Argentina. Doesn't really matter. These are our allies. And people who want to visit here now, visit. Visa-free travel. Visitors. Not live, not work, simply to visit. You have to provide all of this extremely invasive data, up to and including your social media information, before you're allowed to travel to America, and you're an ally of the United States. Just, again, that is the most intrusive thing I have ever heard in my life, at a time when tourism is struggling in America, when people are already afraid to come here. And they're moving the FIFA Cup because of this shit. Or part of it, anyway. And yes, they could scare prospective travelers, but I think they're actually looking at moving the cup. I thought they already did, to be honest. So, on top of having to subject yourself to all of this nonsense just to travel to America, God knows what you would have to do just to even live here or get an actual green card. And even then, ICE has shown a propensity to not give a damn about your lawful status in the first place. They will kidnap you and traffic you in broad daylight. Like, of all the ways to implement isolationist policies in the country, this is perhaps the most obscene way to do it. We're just going to make it extremely unpalatable for anyone to come to America and then lament that nobody's coming to America. Doesn't make any fucking sense. So we'll add this to here instead.
Lal Dehaney, Director of Government Relations at the American Immigration Lawyers Association. This is a stunning new development. If you can talk about what these two groupings are, one who will be fast-tracked to live in this country if you could afford between $1 and $5 million to get your Trump Platinum or Gold card, and the other group who normally can come in and out, like, let's say, people from Spain, of the United States, now have to give 5 or 10 years of social media information, telephone numbers they have used, biometric data. Explain.
Yeah, please explain.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you for having me. I think what this is clearly indicating is we're showing a very clear sign of what the Trump immigration policy is. If you're wealthy, if you can pay to play, then you're welcome to come to the United States. But if you're not, if you're coming as a tourist or you're, coming to seek humanitarian protection, then we're going to make it much tougher for you to come here and really put a lot of hurdles along the way in the guide.
That's a very polite way of saying we're going to make you completely divulge every facet of your life and existence for the privilege of visiting the United States of America. You have to submit all of your private information. Like your own, again, your cell phone number, your email addresses. I wouldn't give my phone number to an employer. I wouldn't give my personal email to an employer, let alone to travel to a fucking country. You don't even need to present that stuff to the military for a top secret clearance. I mean, you do have to give your residential history, but you don't have to give your actual personal cell phone or email address. Like, this is a level of invasion, of privacy invasion, that goes far and above beyond anything that any person would ever have to enter into in the United States, short of criminal investigation. And then, even then, you would need a warrant for it. So the fact that you would need a warrant to get half of the information that this administration is requesting from travelers of allied nations is absolutely preposterous. And the fact that there haven't been lawsuits or judges to strike this down is also a little disturbing, because that should have been the first thing that happened as this was announced. Yeah, the president can't just make up immigration policy, but apparently this one can. For the love of God, don't travel to America. The rest of the world needs to cut us off. Don't come here and spend money, just don't. If tourism stops coming here and spending money, all the corporations fall. Disney will have to close all its parks in the U.S. American visitors come nowhere close to the foreign ones. And that's absolutely true. Many economies in the country do rely on tourism, and Nevada or specifically cities. Las Vegas is one of them. Miami is another. And like you said, the theme parks, Disney World and Disneyland, they depend heavily on tourism. Los Angeles depends heavily on tourism. I think most of the East Coast states and major cities require a boatload of tourism to function. And these cities and these states are struggling as of now, as it already is. And now it's going to be exacerbated further. And this lady is absolutely correct. This does prove that the administration never cared about lawful entry or improving the condition of immigrants that were here. It was always about finding the wealthy and the powerful and giving them a literal golden pass to come to the country, and everybody else can stay the fuck out. And again, the sheer simple fact that people are still trying to come to this country is insane. Like, if I was German, French, Spanish, Australian, Japanese, and I had a lifelong desire to go to America, I would be putting a kibosh on those plans until this administration is gone and whoever replaces it axes all of these provisions. And if the next person doesn't, I would just write off America. Because at this point, you're subjecting yourself to fascistic invasion of privacy to a country that you don't owe any obligation to just to visit. Like, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Is of security and vetting.
And could you talk about how this is turning upside down the historic understanding of what immigration was to the United States? To what degree does the administration need any authorization from Congress to institute these changes?
Complete.
Look, I mean, I think Congress sets forth our immigration laws. That is their responsibility. And you can't create a new visa category like the gold card or the platinum card just by executive order only. That's not unheard of. Only Congress has that authority. You know, we are really concerned about the fact that there is no legal authority. We don't even know what the legal analysis is behind this gold card, because typically, as I said, Congress sets forth the policy, the laws, and the agency interprets those laws. But when it interprets those laws, they have to do detailed analysis about how this will work, what are the requirements, how is it justified under existing laws, and then what's the economic impact of these new proposals. We have nothing. All we have is a website and a form.
So you had this...
I mean, I think at this point it goes without saying, if this administration does something, assume that it's illegal and they can't do it. And the fact that they aren't being held accountable or stopped or blocked in any sort of capacity whatsoever by anyone, not the courts, not the judiciary, not the legislative, not at the state level, not at the local level. At most, you have a couple of people giving sound bites, but not taking any official action, right? I'm sure there are plenty of Democrats that are raising their mouse fist, but have they submitted a proposal on the congressional floor? Have they forwarded proposed legislation to undermine this activity? Have any of the judges made and issued rulings condemning or forcing the presidency to stop? Or, I don't know, holding ICE accountable. That would be crazy. You know, forcing the entire agency to stop. Like, no, not a single person has taken legal action, meaningful action within their bounds to stop this. So instead, because that nobody's stopping it, it's okay, and it's moving forward unchallenged. That's not governance. That is decree. That is, well, that's acting like an emperor or a king. And last I checked, the United States of America wasn't a monarchy or an empire. I mean, an officially recognized empire. And if that's the route we're gonna go, then we have a few. I have a few objections, and also I would like to challenge Trump to the kingship under the ancient writ of, you know, law of challenging the king in duels. Because I too was a presidential candidate during the same election cycle, so I would have the justified right to do so. Anyway. It's already happening to Vegas. Foreign visitors are not going there anymore. It's like the tales of kings of old. The people just put up with the boot until the king does something so bad and so evil that they rise up and throw him down. Well, you would think, what more evil and cruel things could this administration do before people start rising up? And honestly, I'm kind of worried now, because if it hasn't happened yet, and we have done some heinous, cruel things, we covered the first one today, which, well, not that it was the first thing that they did, although this occurred in February, so it was definitely one of the first things this administration was responsible for. That wasn't enough. I mean, we have the ICE raids terrorizing immigrants. We have the economic woes that are continuing to regress further and further and make people suffer more and more. If things are only getting worse, and that's still not enough for people to rise up and speak out, then I shudder to think what it'll actually take. That's why I say again, my state didn't agree to join no kingdom. We have every right to leave the union if that's where we are going. I mean, every state has that right, you know. Isn't that kind of the, I don't know where that's guaranteed in the Constitution, but that's kind of the whole point of the United States of America, rather than, you know, America that happens to have several states, right? Wow. Yeah, let's continue watching this video. There's some good content in here.
Kind of news conference this week with Lutnick sitting next to President Trump. And you had these comments of Lutnick. Let's bring in the top of the best. Let's help them grow America and build America. Why should we take people who are below average? And then you have the Trump Platinum card, the Trump Gold card, and you have then all this information that countries where people usually come and go from the United States have to now give. Who is going to take in this information, this massive amount of information of all the social platform addresses people have, handles people have, phone numbers people have had? What do they do with this?
Yeah, so to your first point, right, I just wanted to make clear, we are already bringing in the best and the brightest in the United States. The visas, the numbers that the Trump card is going to take away are being taken away from recipients of EB1 and EB2 visas, which are for people of extraordinary ability or those who are in our national interest. Those are Nobel Prize winners, award-winning artists and athletes, multinational CEOs, doctors, and engineers. So, you know, the best and the brightest who are contributing to American society are already coming here, and they are already doing what we need them to do. Now,
yeah, and the fact that that piece of shit Lutnick guy said, oh, we only want the best, not the poor. Like, he basically said we don't want poor people coming here. Like, motherfucker, who do you think does the work and the labor that's necessary for you to be rich in the first place? Like, I am so sick of rich people talking down to us as if we aren't the reason why they're rich in the first place. Again, I don't think we should have formed unions. I think we should have kept throwing the plant or the factory owner in the factory, chaining the door and setting it on fire, and then setting his mansion on fire with his family in there and continuing to send messages. I think unions being the compromise to doing that or having the National Guard sent to murder us was a mistake. I'm saying it. The fact that people continue to seek peaceful resolutions with people who do not care, who do not have any sort of empathy or sympathy for anyone other than themselves, you cannot negotiate with terrorists because they're fundamentally unnegotiable with, right? You cannot negotiate with an ideology that wishes you to die and to suffer in the dying. So no, if anybody's hurting our society, it's these rich, greedy motherfuckers that are sucking up to the Trump administration, or would even be capable of buying the gold or the platinum card. So no, I am anti-rich. I am anti-rich. And if I won the lottery tomorrow, you could call me a hypocrite, because the second I have that money, I'm spending it on overthrowing this capitalist nonsense. Capitalism is a disease, and it is killing us. It is killing us directly, and it is killing us not slowly anymore. It was slow from the Reagan administration, but it is escalating. We are entering into the escalation phase. And I'm sorry, I'm sick of it. I don't give a shit. Ban me, Twitch. Fuck capitalism and fuck these rich assholes that want to turn us into mindless slaves. Literally living incubators for their future slave labor. Fuck you. Fuck them. And I truly hope that once I make it into Congress, I can start putting a molecule of fear in their souls and build upon it. Because I'm coming for them. I'm coming for their fucking throats. Legislatively and organizationally. Fuck the rich. Because they are doing nothing but fucking us. Went on a rant there. Sorry, young Linus. You just followed us, so appreciate the follow. Are those pigeons? What is that? Seals? It's a youngle do-do-do-do. Well, all of which is to say.
To your second question about the social media vetting, this is just a real, fishing expedition, right? There's no evidence that we have seen that combing through years and decades, and in certain instances, they're asking for, your last email addresses for 10 years and your phone numbers and the family history. That does nothing to discover a possible, security risk or a terrorist. And so I think what it's only going to cause is a lot more delays in our legal immigration system. It's going to create backlogs. It's going to take the time and energy of people who are supposed to be adjudicating these cases at USCIS, at CBP, at the Department of State, and have them focus on really what I said before, a fishing expedition.
Thanks for watching.
Yeah, and that's the other part. It's a fishing expedition looking for something to pin against others. And what's worse is if they even find something remotely justifiable, they're going to let them come in just to arrest them and make an example of them, which is, again, I think, I don't know what the legal term is, but it amounts to setting up somebody to commit a crime. And if you're a government agency doing that, that in of itself is a crime. You can't orchestrate a crime to occur and then feed it to somebody to carry it out. You can't do that. That's, again, illegal. So the fact that that's exactly what this administration seems to be doing, on top of the invasion of literally everything that this would do. And again, are people that desperate from Europe to come to America that they would subject themselves to this in the first place, as immigrants or otherwise? No, I can't imagine anyone would be. Honestly, I have family in Europe, and I guess if I want to go see them, I'm going to have to go visit them, because I would not subject them to this. I would not ask them to. If I want to see them that badly, and I do, I will go visit them. And if they want to see me that badly, then they can pay for my ticket. No, but all joking aside, as she said, there is no justification, there is no historical evidence, there is no rhyme or reason to be doing this other than for manipulation and control and a fishing expedition. Okay, what's this one about?
It's an Outfront exclusive. The mother of White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt's nephew and godson sitting down for her first television interview after being detained by ICE for nearly a full month. Bruna Caroline Ferreira was arrested by ICE agents last month while driving to pick up her son from school. She shares custody of her child with Leavitt's brother Michael, whom she was engaged to until about a decade ago. Ferreira was shuttled to several detention centers around the country before ultimately being sent to Louisiana, more than 1,600 miles from where she lives, where she calls home in Massachusetts. Ferreira has been living in the United States since 1998. That's when she came here from Brazil. She was a 6-year-old child. The Trump administration calls her a, quote, criminal illegal alien who overstayed a tourist visa. Her attorney maintains that Ferreira is in the process of getting a green card, which she had begun years ago, and that she is protected from deportation through an Obama-era immigration policy. And out front now for her first television interview, Bruna Caroline Ferreira, and she is joined by her attorney.
I was going to say, she came to America at 1998. She looks great, but never mind, she was 6, so that makes a lot more sense. That was only 27 years, so she's in her 30s. Point being, though, and we've covered this dozens of times by now. If you are in the process of getting something, you are protected from being deported. That's the whole point. If you're in the process of getting citizenship, if you're in the process of getting a green card or residency or anything else under the sun, you are protected from deportation, from arrest, from ICE terrorizing you. And the fact that it's happening to high-profile individuals, no less, or people connected to high-profile individuals, just goes to show that it's not about safety and security. It's about cruelty and spreading fear. And the fact, again, if that's not enough for people to rise up, I don't know what is. And honestly, I'm getting concerned. I'm becoming extremely fearful as to what it will take for people to actually wake up to the cruelty and malevolence of this country. Yeah, I'd be afraid of not being allowed back into the country. And she was 6 when she came into the country. Apparently she was targeted because Caroline's brother wants sole custody. So she used her position. She used her position to target a person of her family? That's even more disgusting.
Todd Pomerleau, and I really appreciate both of you being here. So, Bruna, I just want to start, when this story first broke, I kind of had to look at it a couple times to understand what actually had happened here, and then learning more and more about you and who you were. I understand on the day that this happened, you were running out of the house, shoelaces not even tied, to pick up your son from school.
Yes, ma'am.
So tell me what happened.
I was heading out to pick up Michael from school, and a vehicle drove towards me, so I decided to back up to get out of his way. An unmarked vehicle, may I add. And then I noticed in my rearview mirror there was another vehicle, and then it was just a swarm of people, and I was quickly rushed to the Revere Police Department for them to clarify my identity. They didn't know my name. They asked me my name, so I asked them, how could you possibly know who I am and where I live without you having some kind of a warrant? I wasn't presented with any of those documents, so I just started panicking, trying to see if I could get somebody, an emergency contact, anybody to answer me to pick up Michael from school, and just thought
because at this point you were running with your shoelaces untied because you wanted to be first in line to school, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So then all of a sudden no one's going to pick your child up from school.
Correct.
Okay, one thing you said there though, so they're waiting, this vehicle, another vehicle comes up.
And this is the crazy part. How do they need to verify your identity first? Because they don't even know who the fuck you are, but they can just pick you up off the street. Because honestly, I'm a quarter Filipino. I am a quarter here. I'm gonna go ahead and target myself. I am a quarter Filipino. Okay, so I am part brown. I am part brown. So now the whole world knows that I'm part brown. Okay. And that I have family from Germany. So that could mean that I'm part immigrant. So are you going to come after me because of possibly the status of family members or my heritage or my lineage? Oh, wait, I'm not connected to anybody powerful, so you're not going to just up and target me. because I don't look brown. She clearly looks brown. Well, she is brown. My point here is these agents, granted, they were sent to her because of this, obviously, but these agents are doing this to everybody that they are encountering. There are no warrants. There are no warrants. And they are just kidnapping and trafficking people, taking them to police stations, not allowing them to go through any sort of due process, proving their identity. Because again, if she was able to prove her identity at the police station, then that would literally prove that she could not be arrested by ICE in the first place. And the fact that that happened anyway just goes to show that ICE is acting outside of the bounds of law and that they are using non-sanctioned agents to do their dirty work. And of course, there are the actual agents who are more than happy to break the law if it means terrorizing brown people, because they are encouraging in the hiring and training of these ICE agents to be racist, xenophobic pieces of garbage. So come for me. I fucking dare you. I fucking beg you to try and come to me or to my job. You know how many immigrants work at Allen Dairy Marzetti on Frank Road? I'm there between 10 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. Please, motherfuckers, come to my job. I fucking beg you to try and come to my job and take my coworkers. I fucking dare you. Or me. I fucking beg you. Because the one thing I am not going to allow to happen is a warrantless, lack of due process, kidnapping of my person, threatening my life and safety in future because you want to be a neo-Nazi in modern America. Go fuck yourself, ICE, and every single agent that signs up to do the job. Fuck you and every single bounty hunter that is using this excuse to put food on your table, you sick fuckers. And fuck every cop and state officer or agent that aids and abets these absolutely heinous crimes against humanity. Fuck you, and please come at me.
The swarm of people as you describe it. And then you're saying, but they didn't know your name.
No warrant, no, yeah, they asked me, is your name Bruna? And I just asked, well, you know, how do you know who I am if you don't have any type of warrant? How do I know who you are?
So they knew you were Bruna, but they
Yes.
didn't have a warrant for your arrest.
So they wanted me to verify my identity with a driver's license. So I just asked, where do you have a warrant? Or so then they said, let's just rush her over to the Revere Police Department, and there they verified my identity and made a call. I made an emergency call for somebody to go pick up Michael. And after that, I was shuffled around all the entire country.
So I want to ask you about that. Todd, though, okay, what happened here then, do you think? They knew her name.
Correct.
But they didn't have any warrant, they didn't have any proof for it, but they knew her name.
Well, at first they played dumb and acted like it was a traffic stop, so they asked her for her.
Yeah, how are you gonna do a traffic stop when you're pulling out of your goddamn driveway? Again, I wish a motherfucker would.
License, but then somebody says, are you Bruna? Which causes her concern. Plus, traffic cops don't have masks over their faces. That's how immigration and customs enforcement, functions
These guys
days.
had masks.
Yeah, they cover their face, and that's what they did here. And again, they don't show her any warrant, and then apparently they manufactured a warrant when she was in Vermont several hours later, which is highly unusual. And then when you look at the video, TMZ leaked the video. I hadn't seen the video before when I was on the show a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And you see 5 cars just quickly swarm. It looks similar like an undercover drug buy, where they just go in right away and they know who they're getting. And what was strange about it is hardly any people knew where she lived. She was driving a vehicle not registered to her. It seemed like they knew exactly where she was going to be, which was customary. She regularly would pick her son up. She'd leave around the same time, multiple days a week. They knew exactly where she was going to be.
So it sounds like you're saying you were targeted.
Premeditated.
Premeditated.
Very organized.
And because of who she is, because of the relationship to the press secretary.
It seems to be. And what's bizarre about her case anyway, she's been trying to get a green card literally since she was almost 6 years old. And she was in the process of doing that. And literally one day after she filed her most recent green card application, the Trump administration tried to accelerate her deportation case by starting it up again. She had a case that's been effectively shelved since the Obama administration, since Barack Hussein Obama put her in removal proceedings. And it was just basically paused so that she could try to get her green card. She had DACA over a course of years, and she was merely waiting her turn. May 5th, she had her final hearing, but they accelerated the process the day after she filed her application.
So, Bruna, just to be clear, you came here when you were 6 years old.
Yes.
And so obviously you didn't come illegally, first of all.
No.
And you didn't have any choice in the matter, right? I mean, so then
Very excited to come and meet my little sister, yes.
Right, okay, to meet your little sister for the first time. So essentially, you've lived here your entire life, as far as you remember it.
Correct.
Okay, so when they say to you that you're a criminal illegal alien, which is what they're technically calling you specifically and explicitly, this administration, what do you say to that?
Well, and I don't know how many more times we need to say this. I really don't. I don't understand. Being in this country illegally is not justified for the level of violence and covering of masks and aggression that this agency seems to be getting a hard on to going after these people. They are essentially committing a slightly more they are slightly committing a infraction that's slightly worse than a speeding ticket. It would be like passing a school bus. No, that might actually be a felony. All right, hold on. What are misdemeanor traffic violations? So misdemeanor is, okay, driving without insurance or a license, reckless driving, failure to stop, a hit and run, or a DUI. And although DUIs tend to actually be felonies. But still, an illegal immigrant, a person who is here illegally, either overstaying a visa or crossing the river, whatever the case may be. Usually, most illegal immigrants come through ports of entry from airports, not crossing the river. And the equivalent of that crime is driving without insurance or a license. Could you imagine if you got pulled over for speeding, which you shouldn't be doing without a license anyway, because that's just stupid and asking for it. If 5 cops then decided to swarm you, drag you out of your vehicle, kidnap you, traffic you all across the country, losing where you are and not telling any of your friends, family, or loved ones where you are, and then forcing you in some sort of holding cell that has significantly unsanitary, unhealthy, unsafe conditions for 30 days or more, all because you drove without a license. Make that make sense. Just to put it into perspective.
I'm heartbroken. I'm heartbroken for my son, you know. I'm heartbroken for my mother, who has worked for a quarter of a century cleaning houses, earned an honest living, has paid her taxes. I've been a law-abiding citizen. I don't even have a parking ticket, and I'm so proud of it. I'm proud of my name, and I carry it like a badge of honor, you know, like being on an honor roll. And now my child is sitting somewhere watching them broadcast this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. As a child, he must be terrified. Is it true? Did my mom do something? Do I not know about it? Gossip in school? I don't know what's going on in his little mind, and I just want him to know that none of those things are true, honey, and we're going to square this all away.
So that when you go in that day and you make that emergency call, then you lose your phone, right? You don't
Correct.
have a phone,
Yeah.
okay? For 26 days?
26 days.
26 days, no phone.
Yes.
Okay.
And
I can't even imagine what it's like to not
For
be
a
able to talk
mother,
to your child
yeah.
for 26 days.
And her phone somehow got broken during the arrest too, which is on TMZ.
Coincidentally.
It's not a violent arrest, but her phone managed to get
Your
broken.
phone got broken.
Correct.
What was that even like, to not be able to know what happened to your child or even who picked him up from school or anything for 26 days, Bruna?
You have a lot of time to think in there, you know, and you really think the worst. You think the worst, but the luck that I had is that I was surrounded by so many women that had 4 children, you know, one was pregnant, you know, and I can't imagine. I just tried to put myself in their shoes. I was in such a horrible situation, but they were praying for me and I was praying for them, and being able to contact an attorney that could expedite my process, because some people are in there for a year and a half. I can't fathom a mother not knowing where her son is for a year.
See, and these stories just continue to get worse. They seriously fucking do. These people are being detained unlawfully for a year and a half. She spoke to someone who was detained for a year and a half unlawfully. Now we're talking about the Biden administration being a part of this nonsense. And I don't have any love for the Biden administration or Democrats. But if we're saying that this absolute disregard for law and humanitarian rights generally has roots in the Biden administration and has just been exacerbated and set on 13 by the Trump administration, then the Biden administration needs to burn as well. And I've said that just as many times when we were streaming last year. I have no love for the Biden administration, and they need to be held accountable. Granted, their greater crime that is publicly known is aiding and abetting genocide of Palestinians. The Trump administration is taking that and adding humanitarian crisis against immigrants or people with some sort of status in America. And honestly, targeting Americans who just happen to be brown on top of that. Like, this is... I see we have another person here. Sorry. S4 Gaming. Will we actually save Palestine before they're all dead? That's a very damn good question. After World War II, they said never again, and they failed. The UN was created to stop this shit, and they failed. I can't agree harder. The Muslim nations in the area are also failing their brother country. They 100% are. And the few that are trying to step up are being silenced and crushed and threatened into stepping back down. Both parties need to burn. Identity politics is detrimental to open debate and accountability. And just actual, I don't know, governing. Because quite frankly, ever since bipartisanship became so polarized, the actual act of governing has become all but impossible as well. Unlawful presence. Once in the country, remaining without legal authorization is typically treated as a civil violation, not even a legal one. And you know what a civil violation is? The same things you would do if you wanted to sue your neighbor for having a tree grow in your yard or something like that. That's civil, not legal. So again, treating people, because a traffic violation, I think, is legal. I don't think that's a civil offense. I guess that article isn't going to say it, and we don't need to research it that hard. But point being, civil offenses versus legal offenses being really, 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 really bad, incurring jail time. Civil offenses are typically fines. That's it. Typically, they're fines between two parties. Let's see. I do have one tiny gem of hope in American politics. Senator Tallarica. The guy running in Texas. And he's apparently better than Jasmine Crockett. Okay. Well, nobody's heard of him, but he's apparently better on the issues. But nobody heard of Mamdani, except for, the few people who knew about Mamdani. And he was better on the issues, except he keeps walking them back now that he's won. So is Tallarica going to actually stand, his ground and stand proudly and tall, or is he going to allow himself to be walked down if he happens to beat Jasmine in the Senate race? And quite frankly, I'm not holding my breath, especially a Texas Democrat. I just don't see it. I don't see it happening. Speaking of ICE, Minnesota.
Dozens of residents confronting ICE agents operating in communities in South Minneapolis. CBS News Minnesota reports that chemical irritants had been deployed and at least 3 people were seen in handcuffs.
I want to also be very clear. Chemical irritants are banned by the Geneva Conventions to be used at all, but especially against civilian populations. And every country uses tear gas against protesters or dissenters. Just putting that out there.
CBS News Minnesota reporter Jonah Kaplan is at the scene and spoke to people who were...
Sorry, I didn't want to he has already worked with Republicans to cap the cost of insulin. Well, then that's really good. Then he has shown some sort of testicular fortitude on some of the issues. But capping the cost of insulin versus making it free when it was, by the original creators, meant to be free, is still, I would say, a step shy of where he needs to be. But then again, steps in the right direction are better than none. I'll give it that.
We're there.
This was really a tense situation to be around. We're at 29th and Pillsbury, and right down here is the Carmel Market. And of course, this is South Minneapolis, a diverse area, and also an area that has brought a lot of support from community members to their Somali neighbors. And speaking with the people that were out here, that's what they said they were doing today, showing support. And they were doing that by confronting federal agents, presumably from Immigration and Customs Enforcement. They did not have, uniforms that said ICE on it, usually just said federal agents. Some did have, those letters, but also some had flags from other states they were representing. That was kind of a tip to at least the people here, showing that these agents, these federal agents, are not from Minnesota. Regardless, though, again, a very tense situation. You had...
Yeah, the fact that all of these federal agents don't have any identifying features whatsoever, not on their vehicles and not on their uniforms, makes it extremely suspect that they are operating under the rule of law. Because again, even deputizing bounty hunters, that bounty hunters still have to follow the law, way more scrutinized than any officer does. Not that I ever watched Dog the Bounty Hunter, but I do remember one of the clips that I happened to see on social media. Dog or somebody said that. It's like, yeah, we're bounty hunters. We can't just use lethal force. We can't just use this, that, and the other. We're still civilians at the end of the day, but we're given special privileges to go after criminals and turn them in for a paycheck. But cops, they're the ones that can do X, Y, and Z. We can't. So even if these are deputized bounty hunters or civilians or God knows what else, the fact that they are the predominant feature in these areas is a huge, huge problem, because they are acting extrajudicially, for one. And for two, if they aren't sanctioned agents and they're acting extrajudicially and they're being protected, then who's to say that they were sanctioned in the first place? You can buy this entire outfit. This entire outfit you can buy on Amazon or somewhere on the internet. That's a chemical mask right there, and a flak vest in tactical green, and then the jumpsuit. You can buy that anywhere. The mask is a little expensive, right? We saw that. But beyond that, everything else you can get pretty readily. And then you can just show up with these guys and say, hey, yeah, I'm from Ohio. I'm Sam Ronan. I'm a bounty hunter. I got my credentials. And since they don't even carry credentials or bother with them, they're not even going to question people who show up. Like, every single one of these people could literally be vigilantes for all we know. And that is the entire problem.
Had those agents right up against the faces of many of the protesters here. And now you could see the area clearing out. But we're going to find out soon what operations did happen here, and we're working to confirm whether or not there were any injuries or arrests.
Yeah. Honestly, the fact that these are happening all over the country now, and growing, they're happening all over the country and growing. Let's be very clear. This is expanding and escalating, and that isn't enough to unite us as a country. It's only uniting the cities and communities where this is happening, but not the country as a whole. Are we so insular and isolated that we cannot reach out to our fellow man, our fellow countrymen, and stand shoulder to shoulder with them? Is that how far we have fallen? Because if so, there is no chance for uprising. There is no chance for unification. There is no chance for dissent against this administration and its unlawful practices if even things like this are only responded to at insular rates. That's just not how that works. We're not gonna get anywhere like that. Okay, so that's still on the insulin thing. They're not agents at all. Most of them are private security companies or contractors. To go back to Israel, America also privatized militants to murder Palestinians and divide and conquer. No, I mean, You haven't said a single untrue thing so far today, S4. Which is unfortunate because you're agreeing with me. And I'm saying some pretty dystopian things, unfortunately. And the only thing the news is doing is reporting on the fact that it is happening. They're not condemning it. They're not decrying that it's illegal and unlawful, that agencies should be clearly marked and clearly presenting identification, and that no amount of saving the agents is justification for this nonsense. The only reason why the agents feel in danger for their safety is because they're acting like secret police and disappearing people off of the street in broad daylight. They wouldn't be threatened if they weren't doing that. If they were doing their jobs the right way, nobody would bat an eyelash. People would still be a little upset that there's that many warrants for immigrants coming out all of a sudden. But that goes to the point. They don't even have the most simplest justifying documentation for their presence there. It's just all violence, brutality, and cruelty, which is, again, why I have mentioned earlier, I'm a quarter Filipino. Please come and come for me. Please come for me. I have family in Europe. I have family from Europe. Direct ties. You could even claim that I have immigrant ties. Please come for me, you sick fucks. I beg you. These are dystopian times. I'm 28 and I'm just learning now that the world is just always fucked. Yeah, I'm learning more and more how much the world has been fucked, but I can safely say that America was not this fucked until recently. We have been, to greater or lesser degrees, fucked, but not this fucked. This is the level of fuckery that occurs in fascist regimes or in the declines of empires. And the fact that we're living through it is not a fun thing at all. Justin Bieber is live streaming right now. You are competing against JB. That's an interesting factoid, I guess. Is Justin Bieber live streaming politics? Because if not, then I'm not competing against him at all. But okay, now I'm what? He's singing? Yeah, then yeah, it's not politics. And I'm not competing against him at all. That'd be like saying I'm competing against XQC. No, I'm not. I just want to know, will World War III kick off before Trump leaves office? If it doesn't, we have hope. Can other nations hold fire for 3 years? I mean, honestly, that's my question. Can we avoid World War III and further escalation of fascism in America long enough for me to get into office and start calling it out? Because quite frankly, at the rate things are going, one of those two is going to happen first. Is that World War III is going to kick off because we do an illegal ground invasion of Venezuela, or the fascistic consolidation becomes so, well, shall I say, condensed or finalized that dissent becomes against the law, that the First Amendment is completely eroded. At which point, my election might be affected, because if it happens before May 5th, then they are not going to let their guy get primaried. If it happens after May 5th, then it's a question of, will they allow a Republican that doesn't stand with their agenda to continue to run for office? So there's a lot of scary dystopian things that could happen next year, and it is right around the corner. China could, but China doesn't want that. Yeah, China has historically refrained from military violence because they could just manipulate everybody with economics and trade. I like how a lot of churches are doing ICE-themed nativity scenes, which is true because in Trump's America, Jesus and his parents would have been locked up and deported because of their skin color. And that is true. I mean, if churches are going to be political, I'd rather them be political in a dissenting fashion than supporting, the fascism. China is going to join India and Russia, the three largest nations. They already have. BRICS. But China cares more about business and making money. They're not in the business of war. And again, China historically has not needed to resort to war because their economic and trade influences have been more than sufficient to achieve control of any region or any nation. Okay. We're going to do a quick break, and then we're going to get to our next video. Let's see. Is that the USSR national anthem? I think so. The Red Army Choir, the national anthem of the USSR. Yep, that's exactly what it was. So Trump is buddy-buddy with Putin, so, like, who is left to fight against those four supergiants? I mean, listen, I don't know, but the fact that the Axis powers includes the largest nuclear arsenal in the world, and that they are becoming extremely, extremely radicalized in their xenophobia and racism is extremely disturbing and does not fill me with joy. It does not spark joy in the slightest. But yeah, so and honestly, the fact that the countries that we are trying to ally with are actual terrorist countries or countries that have fascist leanings, like Argentina right now under Milei, North Korea, like what is it, Syria with the Al-Qaeda terrorist as president now? Like, I mean, it's insane to me that those are our allies right now, but not, Germany, France, Spain, Canada, Mexico, our actual literal two neighbors. No, Those aren't our allies. In fact, we are threatening Canada to annex them, Greenland to annex them, and Mexico to invade them, and we don't even want brown people in the country. So, like, I don't understand why we would invade and conquer Mexico. Why would we invade and conquer Venezuela? So we can deport all brown people to Venezuela or Mexico, respectively? It doesn't make sense. Yeah, right. Israel is our ally, and they're actively committing genocide. So I don't understand what the ideas are behind these various activities. But that's, I think, part of the point. Speaking of which,
127 of Donald Trump's second term, and just like basically every commander-in-chief before him, James Carville's words apply here too. It's the economy, stupid. This week, the president began a public campaign-like push around his policies and the issue of affordability. And what we're seeing is a presidential blame game with more finger-pointing than pointing to a fix.
The Democrats caused the affordability problem. Jerome, too late. He's too late with his interest rate.
see, this is, I don't get that. How are you going to blame the Democrats for a single solitary fucking thing when your administration has been in charge for almost a year? By the way, it takes 6 months of a new administration's economic policies to take effect. So from the 7th month onward is that administration's economic policy in full swing. So, what is 6 months after January 21st? July 21st. How long have we had flagging employment numbers? August, September, October, November, and including December. So, July was the 6th month of implementing the economic plan of this administration. And ever since then, the job numbers and economic numbers have been just nosediving. And guess what? We have a fully controlled House, Senate, and Supreme Court. Most states are the same. I think a majority of states are in fact conservative controlled, and most courts are conservative controlled. So in what fucking universe are the Democrats responsible for any of this other than the fact that they did nothing to prevent it? So, Trump is setting up the dominoes to take authoritarian dictatorship power over America. Oh no, we called that out pretty much day one. That's exactly what Project 2025 is there to do, is to create a situation in which the president can assume authoritarian dictatorship over the country by eroding every single constitutional protection check and balance involved. There are other ways to do that. You could just call for a state of emergency and then just use your complicit secret police forces and imprison everybody. You could do that too. But that's a little bit less palatable. And then once the state of emergency is over, you have to let everybody out again. So what they're doing is 100% trying to erode any checks or balances to their power and to their activities. But suffice to say, he might be fanning the flames of World War III to secure a dictatorship over the states. No, he might be, because that's what every other president has done. During times of war, they've given themselves more power and authority. Netanyahu, Zelensky, Putin. I think Milei was one. I don't think Maduro did that, but he has been in power for quite some time. But suffice to say, a lot of presidents do that, especially when they don't want to relinquish power. But if the domestic political power doesn't work, he will use the conflict of the war to do it. No, I agree with that. I 100% agree with that. And we've been calling it out since literally we've started streaming again this year. There is no question that what he is doing is trying to assume dictatorial powers. The question then becomes, once he assumes the dictatorship of America, are the actual powers that be that are actually pulling the strings behind the scenes going to just kill him and put J.D. Vance in charge? Or are they going to let him be a marionette until he actually dies of natural causes due to his own lifestyle choices, and then use J.D. Vance or somebody else? That's the question. And the other question is, can we hold out long enough for me to get into Congress, or a left-wing movement, or not even a left-wing, just a populist movement generally, to form and resist this obvious play for power? J.D. Vance is playing the long game. No, very clearly, and he's losing everything that he should hold dear, such as his wife and fucking children. But I digress.
It's for a reason. He's a bad guy. When Biden and congressional Democrats had power, they blew up our economy, sent prices soaring. Their entire agenda is about robbing working people to fund their far-left cronies and give lavish benefits to foreign migrants and illegal aliens. The Democrats...
That's literally what you're proposing with your gold and platinum cards. Lavish benefits to foreign immigrants. Are you fucking serious? Like, this is the part that pisses me off the most about Trump and conservatives, or at least this modern era of conservative, right? Like the politician, not conservative voters. I know why they vote conservative, because they want to keep the illusion of the 50s strong and alive in their hearts. I'm not going to fault them for leaning on a time in history that seemed like it was everything this country ever could have offered and hoped to be. The problem is they don't see the social failures behind it. They only see the economic ones, where one person could work and afford a house, a car, and vacations and college for their kids if they fucking wanted it, right? With a nice pension and retirement after 30 years. I understand why conservatives hold on to the 50s and 60s as the golden age of America. I do. I 100% empathize with it, no less. But I am realistic enough to realize that we can have the economic security of the 50s and 60s without having the social consequences of the 50s and 60s, right? All of which is to say, modern conservatives will literally blame their opposition for the very thing that they are doing, which is insane because they are literally doing it openly and then brazenly blaming the opposition for it. And I don't understand how the general population falls for it every single time. He just said the Democrats want to give benefits to their foreign beneficiaries or whatever the fuck I don't want to listen to it again. And he literally implemented a gold and platinum card. He talked about the Democrats just catapulting the economy and destroying it for everybody. And literally, his economy has started to finally take effect, and it has done nothing but cause prices to skyrocket and employers to fire people. It's infuriating. That's one of the reasons why I hate listening to him, because he just lies. And he lies about what he's doing by blaming it on others. But I can't see the plan working because World War III can kick off because there's not enough countries aligned to go against America, Russia, and China. Well, that's where you're wrong. America isn't going to align with Russia, China, and India. It's going to be those three versus America. But the other problem is World War III might not be two powers against each other. It might be 3 or 4. And that could be interesting in of itself in a very scary way. Because it would be China it would be the United States of America against the South American continent. It would be China against Eastern Asian nations. It would be Russia against Europe and most of the Middle East. And then India would be going against its neighbors. So it would actually be 4 theaters of war with 4 different alliance groups. Now, would the BRICS overcome, and then Russia, China, and India, at the very least, start allying themselves? Maybe. And if that happens, it's even scarier because then the European Union and America has to stand united. But America is also the bad guys. And Europe isn't actually that far removed. They just have better social programs. But right-wing extremism is definitely taking hold of European countries as well. So, honestly, it would be like the Axis against the Axis powers. Like, whoever wins that war, we all lose. India won't go against China? Perhaps not. Perhaps not. And it maybe I am inclined to agree with that. But it just seems like if Russia, China, and India were to at least stay out of each other's way, it would not be good for Europe and America. And even then, Europe and America aren't the good guys. Europe is engaging in colonization of the entire global South through the IMF and World Bank. And America is just being led by this piece of shit right now. So Europe would be decimated probably. Hell, Russia is already on the verge of invading Poland. All right. But that's more talk for tomorrow. Tomorrow's Worldwide Wednesdays. Today is Taco Tuesdays. And we're 2 hours in and we're barely... we're exactly a third of the way through. All right, let's see how he tries to talk himself out of being in the Epstein list.
A week left to release everything it has on Jeffrey Epstein. Today, Democrats on the House Oversight Committee made their own contribution to the public record, putting out several dozen photos that were provided by the Jeffrey Epstein estate. Now, these are just some of the more notable ones. The ranking committee Democrat, Congressman Robert Garcia, calls them, quote, disturbing, and says they, quote, raise even more questions about Epstein and his relationships with some of the most powerful men in the world. To be clear, though, while the photos certainly do include photos of powerful men, the president included, the committee provides absolutely no captions or descriptions to put what we're seeing in any kind of context. And none of the men has ever been charged with any wrongdoing related to Epstein. None of the released images depict any sexual misconduct, nor believed to depict underage girls. For instance, there's this photo of then Citizen Trump with a woman on a plane, but no clue as to whose plane or which woman or when and where this was taken. There's also an image of him surrounded by women, all of whose faces have been obscured. Again, no information about who these women are in the photo, nor when and where this was taken. The president weighed in on the photos tonight.
Is Anderson Cooper trying to give Trump what's the word? Benefit of the doubt? That's not the phrase, but is he trying to build a case that there's benefit of the doubt that there was any wrongdoing? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? What the fuck is wrong with you? These were the victims. That's why their faces were redacted. That's why their names aren't being released, for their fucking protection. Are you fucking kidding me? That's how you choose to report this? Christ all fucking mighty. S4, you don't think Trump even knows he's lying? He's genuinely senile? That could be. 100%, and he believes everything he says. He has 0 brain cells. We're going to skip ahead and see what this is about.
Yes,
because
they have. So this is an actual document production pursuant to the congressional subpoena. So we subpoenaed these documents from the estate, and they've been producing various documents in various tranches. So like I said, this is the 4th production, and the attorneys for the committee, which is a bipartisan set of attorneys, so both Democratic and Republican attorneys, went to authenticate the release of these documents.
So do you know how many more photos your committee has, and do you know when they may be released?
As was explained to me by the attorneys today, there's about 95,000 photographs were released by the estate yesterday.
So you have, I mean, there's only been, a dozen or so photographs released now. So you have almost 94,000 or plus photos still to go through, or are going through.
As I understand it, that is what the staff and attorneys on the committee are going through right now, yes.
All right. Congresswoman Melanie Stansbury, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joining me now, former federal prosecutor and professor at the Cardozo School of Law, Jessica Roth, and Julie K. Brown, award-winning investigative reporter for the Miami Herald. Her work was vital in exposing the extent of Epstein's sex trafficking ring. She's also the author of Perversion of Justice, the Jeffrey Epstein Story. Julie, when you hear that there are some it sounds like almost still 95,000 or 94 more plus thousand photos still to be released, what do you make? I mean, that's a huge amount.
Well, they probably encompass quite a number of years. When he was doing his sex trafficking in Palm Beach, we know from my interviews with those victims that Ghislaine Maxwell, his accomplice, was taking a lot of photographs of those underage girls. They had reported that they were instructed at several points to pose provocatively in various stages of undress. And part of it sometimes was just to give Jeffrey a present, a birthday present or some kind of a gift with these pictures. She was with a camera all the time, I was told from some of these victims. So it could go back quite a ways. That was 20 years ago. So, and the police, by the way, when they raided his home back in 2005, his computers were already pulled out. In other words, he was tipped off. So they never got their hands on the photographs back then. They never got their hands on his computers, which presumably contained some of these photographs. So it's a long period of time probably that they have this information.
Jessica, why do you think some of the faces were redacted by the committee and others not?
We haven't been provided with a full explanation of that. I mean, that's among the many things that we don't have about the context for these photographs. I think the implication is that these may be redactions to protect the privacy of the survivors. We know that that is something that Congress is appropriately concerned about, and that the Department of Justice under the Epstein Transparency Act is permitted to make redactions for, but there hasn't been a clear statement.
And they have not said these faces are redacted.
Okay. What the fuck? They are spending more time, energy, and effort scrutinizing the actions and activities of Congress, redacting pictures from the Epstein files, and I'm assuming bringing the validity of those acts and trying to throw some sort of doubt to the criminal implications of being associated with these photos brings, then they have put into literally anything else in this administration. They haven't done it for ICE. They haven't done it for violating SCOTUS orders. They haven't done it for, I don't know, the economy. They haven't done it for any of the claims that have been made with Venezuela. None of that. None of this actual journalism, none of this actual scrutinized reporting has been used for even Israel against Palestinians. But they have pulled out all the stops to scrutinize and challenge the veracity of the Epstein files and pictures and question their validity and what that actually means and the implications. Buddy, are you about to show up on those? Anderson fucking Cooper, are you in the Epstein files? Because if so, I hope you rot in fucking prison. And I hope you get all of the attention you will undoubtedly receive and deserve for being in those files. And I hope every motherfucker in those pictures gets the same exact treatment. Because that's the only thing I can think of, is that these reporters are more than happy to play the partisan line or the administrative line up till the point where their own asses are on the line, when their own feet are in the fire. And the fact that they're choosing to do this on the Epstein list, literally the worst criminal of modern times and most prolific criminal of modern times in terms of what he did and who was involved, and you're going to scrutinize that to that degree and try and undermine the implications there. But you don't even have a tenth of that effort for the crimes against humanity to be conducted by ICE and the military under this administration. Or Israel murdering and committing genocide against Palestinians. Or any of the other humanitarian crises that occurred. Or the fact that Elon Musk did a Nazi salute twice within 4 hours of Trump becoming president, and is equally responsible for rigging voting machines, and then ransacked our government agencies for 4 months straight. You have more journalistic integrity to try and discredit the Epstein releases than that. Are you fucking kidding me?
Sources say the US Food and Drug Administration intends to put a black box warning on COVID-19 vaccines. That warning is the FDA's most serious tool used to warn users about life-threatening risks linked to a product. For reference, opioids carry a black box warning due to the risk of abuse, addiction and overdose. Health Secretary RFK Jr. has repeatedly questioned the safety of COVID-19 vaccines. CNN's Meg Tyrrell has more.
So a black box warning on vaccines is something that doesn't make sense because black box warnings are usually for addictive medications. A vaccine is a one and done. You can't get addicted to a vaccine.
Well, we've learned that the FDA is finalizing plans to put its most serious warning on COVID-19 vaccines. It's called a black box warning, and it shows up really at the top of prescribing information outlined in a black box so that prescribers and patients are aware of really serious risks that can be associated with products. Typically, this is reserved for situations where a medical product might be associated with the risk of death or life-threatening or disabling reactions. And really, it's there so that prescribers and patients can weigh those potential risks against the benefits of any intervention that they're considering. Now, we've learned that this is in the process. It's not finalized and could still change, but it comes after a memo was issued in late November by the FDA's vaccines chief, Dr. Vinay Prasad, which claimed that the COVID-19 vaccine has been linked to the deaths of at least 10 children. Now, this is a claim that outside experts say they haven't seen data to support and question if that is part of the impetus for adding this label to the vaccines, whether that is an appropriate course of action. Typically, also, the procedure for something like this involves a really public process. The FDA typically, experts tell us, would let the public know that it's weighing this safety risk, sometimes call an outside panel of advisors to meet to discuss the safety data and whether to add this to the labels of a medical product. And so far, of course, we haven't seen any of that take place. Now, we have reached out to the Department of Health and Human Services, which tells us in a statement, quote, unless the FDA announces it, any claim about what it will do is pure speculation. The FDA takes very seriously any death that is attributed to a regulated medical product. We should also point out this is just the latest in a series of efforts under the Trump administration's health officials during this administration to weaken confidence in COVID-19 vaccines. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been a longtime critic of the COVID vaccine's safety and efficacy.
He even looks like a fucking disease. I know they're purposely finding pictures that don't make him look very flattering, but just look at this motherfucker. This is Pestilence. Like, if you were to cast Pestilence in a fantasy show or a sci-fi show or a show like Supernatural, you couldn't go much worse than RFK Jr. You really couldn't. Pestilence, right fucking there. And again, the journalistic integrity in this clip, in this video, is still not challenging these actions and these decisions to nearly the same degree that Alison Cooper was challenging the validity or the reasons behind releasing the Epstein photos and redacting the faces of them. All she's saying is that there is a history of anti-vax behavior and that they do seem to be going around some of the protocols that are typically used. Not at all going to town like this is unprecedented. This is going against the scientific community. This is undermining public belief in vaccines, and it is causing panic and is causing indirectly the deaths of children who are not getting vaccinated, hence the measles outbreak. Like, again, Anderson Cooper put so much more fire under the Congress releasing the Epstein files than this lady is going after RFK Jr. for literally endangering millions of people's lives by undermining the validity of vaccines. A scientific breakthrough, by the way, that has saved millions, if not billions of lives.
efficacy. But we should also note that these vaccines were developed, tested, and greenlit under the first Trump administration, really in a scientific feat that was so monumental that many Republicans now are calling for the president to win the Nobel Peace Prize for it. COVID-19 vaccines are still recommended, especially for more vulnerable groups, including the elderly, people with weakened immune systems, and also for children and babies under the age of 2, all who are at a potentially higher risk of being hospitalized for COVID-19. So there is a lot of concern that a warning like this placed on these vaccines could weaken confidence in them when vaccination rates are already low, potentially making those trends even worse.
Meg Tyrrell there, joining us now, Dr.
That's the fire you have for it. That's it. It's undermining vaccine usage when there's trust already. Like, are you serious? I'm about to not use CNN, other than as a disclaimer that this might be right-wing propaganda. Take it with a grain of salt, because this is obscene. This is actually infuriating. It's insulting my intelligence that these renowned journalists, Anderson Cooper is treated as this level of integrity, of this level of professionalism. And this motherfucker is damn near protecting Epstein and trying to undermine the release of the files. And then they're reporting on RFK Jr. trying to undermine public safety as if it's, he was swimming in shit again. Oh, imagine that. This video.
We had the greatest economy in history in my first term.
Mixed signals in terms of what that looks like. But inflation is down from where it was. As measured by the overall CPI, it has slowed to an average 2.5% pace. This is down from what the president inherited. The president inherited 2.9% in January. Today it's at about 2.5%. So we're trending in the right direction with more to come. And I would remind you, when President Trump left office in his first term, inflation was 1.7%. And the previous administration jacked it up to a record high 9%. So again, in 10 months, the president has clawed us out of this hole. He's kept it low at 2.5%, and we believe that number is going to continue to decline, especially as energy and oil prices continue to decline as well. It wasn't high under Biden. They're just saying it's not. Well, nobody reported on it being high under Biden. My predecessor was standing at this podium.
So speaking of CNN being propaganda, what is this news conference anyway? Just bickering back and forth? Like... Okay.
Police officers testify.
Let's do something less infuriating. Like talking about Luigi Mangioni's pretrial. That is at least a little bit warming to the soul, because this guy is probably going to be exonerated because of how absolutely corrupt every police agency was involved with this arrest and the trial and everything leading up to it. So let's take a... because we might get something good out of this.
In the pretrial hearing of the United Healthcare CEO murder suspect, Patrolman George Featherstone is describing seeing security footage of the suspect before the arrest. Featherstone photographed and processed all the items found in Mangioni's backpack and that police say they found on Mangione. And now the defense is trying to get some of those key pieces of evidence tossed from the case, saying officers violated the suspect's rights when they searched him without a warrant. ABC News legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer's here for more.
And this is the thing that keeps getting me too, because shocking that they're trying to paint Luigi as a monster. The lawyers, the poor evil lawyers, are trying to say that the big heroic cops violated scary Luigi's rights by not using a warrant. They're trying to paint this picture that the noble police forces of NYPD Blue did the best they could do against the heinous monster who committed the atrocity of murdering a healthcare CEO that was personally responsible for denying the largest amount of healthcare requests out of any other company. Like, if you search somebody without a warrant, that's called violating due process. And yes, anything found during that process should be thrown out and inadmissible because it violated due process. Even if they had caught him with the smoking gun, they would not have the right to search his backpack until they got the warrant. And nobody should be upset about that. Literally nobody.
Brian, what do you make of this testimony so far as we're hearing the description of not only the search, but also how this evidence was photographed after?
Yeah, so Dan, this is a lot of chain of custody testimony. We're getting not just the officer earlier on in this hearing who had searched the backpack of Luigi Mangione. Now we're getting the officer who cataloged and did a further search of these documents. We're also seeing some of the information on these notes, and these are going to be some of the photos and some of the testimony that is going to be very similar at trial, giving an explanation as to what was in Luigi Mangione's backpack, and then connecting those notes and those instructions to his physical actions that are tied to this alleged crime, further solidifying that Luigi Mangione is in fact the individual who committed this murder, one of the stronger arguments the prosecution is going to make when this trial begins.
Brian, we're also seeing some security footage of the suspect at a CVS and a Best Buy. How are prosecutors...
So Luigi murdered somebody, fled the state, went to Pennsylvania, but on his way to McDonald's, he went to a Best Buy to do what? Look at the latest video games? Check out the laptops? Check out a washer and dryer? And then went to CVS, what, for a soda pop? And then decided to go to McDonald's? So basically Luigi went out of his way to be publicly recognized and then wasn't until McDonald's. All right, and you expect us to buy any of that?
Tying that into this hearing.
Yeah, so they're showing us part of the investigation and how it played out, but also connecting Luigi Mangione's actual actions as it comes to not just the alleged crime, but also the actions afterwards. And they're pointing to some of the notes talking about items that need to be purchased from those exact locations, Best Buy and CVS, whether it be a camera or I think some medical masks. And I think in showing that there was a plan and an execution of that plan, and a large part of that plan, or at least a goal of that plan, was to commit this murder, they're able to show how Luigi Mangione is not only the suspect in this case, but he planned it out. It was premeditated. There was an end goal and also an attempt to evade law enforcement. That will strengthen their argument for murder, one of the top charges, if not the top charge, in this state case.
I'm still lost. So he went to CVS to get masks, and then he went to Best Buy to get what? A burner phone? For what? If he was going to premeditate the killing, all he needed... And honestly, you wouldn't just go and buy a mask the day, like the minutes, hours before, buy a mask. Oh shit, I forgot to buy a mask for my murder that I'm going to commit in public. Are you kidding me? Oh my God, this story, the absolute just gymnastics that they are trying to do to try and pin this on him is pretty remarkable, actually.
Brian, what are you watching for next?
I'm looking to see who the defense ultimately calls, if they call anyone, and also cross-examination. When it comes to hearings, it's very easy to hear and understand what the prosecution is attempting to do. There was a search. It was lawful. This is why it was lawful. It's really up to the defense to poke holes in it. I'm also looking at this photo here that you're putting up here, and I want to correct a little bit of what I said earlier, how it could be polarizing. I think understanding the context, we're now...
It could be polarizing? Polarizing how? That he is an extremely sympathetic defendant, that in the court of public opinion, men, women, the elderly, like... Everybody is looking at Luigi and say, nah, he didn't do it. He's too fucking pretty. Is that the polarizing aspect of it? That it's going to undermine the prosecutor's ability to find him guilty because, like, nobody's going to look at this man and be like, oh, no, he did it. Like, the jury's going to come in and he's going to do his little catwalk. He's going to wink and smile at him. He's like, no, there's no way. There's no way he did it. Like, what? Come on. All right. That was a bit of levity for our stream. I thank you for adding that. We definitely needed that. Let's get back to our regularly sponsored content of dystopian nightmare fuel.
And President Trump's chief of staff is speaking out about the administration in a series of interviews with Vanity Fair. Susie Wiles says Trump has a, quote, alcoholic personality and will go for it whenever he sees an opportunity for retribution. She also...
Correct me if I'm wrong, but is the White House chief of staff not supposed to be the president's greatest advocate? And this lady is saying he has an alcoholic personality?
Also calls Vice President Vance a conspiracy theorist for a decade and says Attorney General Pam Bondi whiffed on the Epstein files controversy. Now Wiles is calling the article a disingenuously framed hit piece. White House correspondent Karen Travers is here for more on that.
Yeah, she was probably being interviewed by somebody undercover as not a journalist, and she didn't realize who she was talking to, and she said her truth, and then it showed up in a Times piece or Vanity Fair piece, and she's like, I never said that. I would never say that. Please don't kill me, dear leader. This is actually entertaining. Let's go.
Hi, Karen. So Wiles is taking issue with this article, but she's not denying the specific quotes, and some of them are pretty eye-opening. So how is she explaining some of these statements?
Yeah, and this was a series of interviews that she did with Vanity Fair's Chris Whipple over many months. 11 interviews, he said, that he put together in these two pieces.
So wait, was she... What? What? I didn't know I was interviewing with a Vanity Fair reporter 11 times. I didn't say those things, and I didn't mean them that way. It's a hit piece. Bruh, you disparaged him yourself. He just put it into an article. Okay, what?
In her statement posted on social media, Susie Wiles says this is a disingenuously framed hit piece on me, the president, the White House staff, and the cabinet. But she also says that this was done to paint an overwhelmingly chaotic and negative narrative about the president and our team.
Buddy, this wasn't done to you. You gave them the information. You did this. You, Susie Wiles. You did that. What did you think was going to come out of that interview or that article after 11 interviews of saying that it's a shit show? That he was going to gussy it up and put sunshine and rainbows on it? All right. Okay.
But Diane, this piece has Washington talking because there are some incredible headlines in here. She talks about the president's retribution campaign, saying that when there's an opportunity, he will go for it, but that there was a loose agreement that the score settling would end before the first 90 days of his term were over. She talked about Elon Musk.
Isn't that blatant corruption? The score settling would end before the first 90 days were over. There shouldn't be any score settling. That's against the law. That is a crime. That's political prosecution. Persecution even. That's what we accuse Russia, China, and North Korea of doing. And now Elon Musk.
Musk, who came in and was put in charge of the Department of Government Efficiency. She said that he was an odd duck whose actions were not always rational and sometimes left her aghast. She talked about J.D. Vance, who at one point was very anti-Trump and then, of course, is now part of the MAGA fold. And
I mean, her take on Elon Musk is the same one that I think everybody who was an Elon Musk fanboy and everybody who knew what he was like, and then people who didn't give a shit, all agreed on was like, what the fuck are you doing and why are you doing that?
she said that that conversion was sort of political. She talked about the tariffs that the president put in place and said that there was a huge disagreement about this major policy decision of the president's, saying that this was a conversation and disagreement about whether they were a good idea. And on the president's current strategy in the Caribbean against Venezuela, she says that that strategy is to keep blowing up boats until Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela, says uncle. Diane?
Okay. ABC News and whoever this lady is. That was the best journalism I have heard coming out of this network. And it wasn't even their reporting, their journalism. It was actually Vanity Fair. So, Vanity Fair, Susie Wiles interview. Part 1 of 2. Look at her face! She's like, I fucked up, didn't I? And you got Stephen Miller like, yes, I am the Nazi chief of staff. And you got, oh, no, I forgot her name. Doesn't really matter. You got Rubio, who's, and then these two clowns. I don't actually know them by face. Okay. And of course, it's paywalled. It's a 29-minute interview. You're seriously going to paywall this shit? So that's why. Okay. So we can't watch it or listen to it unless we're willing to pay to watch it, which is absolutely stupid. Okay, but I guess what to know. Conspiracy theorist. Pam Bondi whiffed her handling of the Epstein files. Donald Trump as having an alcoholic's personality. Listen to the full interview by clicking on the blue button above. Oh, wait. That was the wrong one.
Days in Washington, what with everybody multitasking and the news cycle moving at the speed of light, that one magazine article cuts through the noise and gets everybody talking. Well, enter Vanity Fair writer Chris Whipple and his profile out today of White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, in which Wiles is quoted as making remarkably candid comments about her boss, the president, also about members of the cabinet and more. Susie Wiles is calling the article a hit piece. Chris Whipple joins me live. Hi there.
Great to be with you.
Great to have you with us. Start with the reporting. You write that Susie Wiles answered almost every question you put to her over many on-the-record conversations. How many?
Yeah.
So, like, she knew she was on the record. Over 11 like, are you serious? I doubt Wiles' conclusion about Billy Boy with Epstein. I don't care if he drinks or not. The personality alcoholic thing is scary. No, I mean, every part of this thing is scary and a damning account of this administration. And it's also nothing we haven't said ourselves and drawn conclusions for. Like, it's blatantly, painfully obvious to everyone with at least 2 brain cells to rub together that this administration is a clown show, that they are trying to be authoritarian, as S4 Gaming pointed out, and the fact that that it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. But let's continue. Why not? Let's get
That was really an extraordinary journey, and obviously almost unprecedented. I mean, this is not only a White House Chief of Staff, but one who is sort of the Greta Garbo of White House chiefs. You don't hear from her. You don't see her very often. And, every once in a while in your career as a reporter, lightning strikes. And in this case, she began talking to me last January.
And gave you what?
In the beginning.
Like a double-digit number of interviews? A dozen?
11 interviews, okay. In-depth interviews over 11 months.
Wow.
Throughout Trump 2.0.
You document that you often spoke to her on Sundays after church, that at one occasion, at least, she stood up and walked out a meeting with the president in the Oval Office to go eat sandwiches with you in the White House mess. Why?
That's right. To what extent Donald Trump knew that the interviews were happening, I honestly don't know. What I do know is that Susie Wiles spoke to me in depth on the record for 11 months with remarkable candor. And, the one case, I went to the White House on November 4th, and when she at the appointed time, she was stuck in a meeting in the Oval Office with the president, J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, and Stephen Miller. They were talking about Venezuela and the filibuster.
Mm-hmm.
And at the appointed time, actually she was about 10 minutes late, she stood up and headed for the door. Trump said, "Is this an emergency? Where are you going?" She kept him guessing. She simply said, it doesn't involve you, and off she went. And we met in her office and spoke for a good hour.
And I want to get to some of the meat of what.
Okay, so this lady went out of her way to throw Trump under the bus, left meetings with Trump to throw him under the bus, did this knowingly on the record. And then when it finally came out, she's like, "I didn't say that." I would never. Also has a historical history, a historical consistency of not talking to people being seen or heard, and goes out of her way to talk to this guy. Bruh. Like, yes, it was a hit piece. No, it's not going to bring down the administration, but yes, it was a hit piece. Oh my God. Mick Foley said he's done with any future WWE thing because of what Trump said. What he said about Rob Reiner, mentioning that the connection of WWE with Trump and his immigration policies left him concerned. And the Reiner thing was the last straw. Dude, it took until this to get him to leave, not the immigration thing. Or the fact that, the, what is her name? Lindsay McMahon or something is on the administration. And that's a very clear indicator that you should get the fuck out of Dodge. Yeah, she definitely has some major cojones. But the question still is, like, if again, being called out on the immigration policies, the Nazi thing, and this, that, and the other, the war crimes in the Caribbean, claiming and admitting that the Caribbean is literally murdering people in the sea until Maduro blinks. If the Epstein scandal is not enough to topple him, because nobody's willing to topple him, then this certainly isn't going to do it either. But the fact that it came out, and I hope we're going to actually have to save these articles, even though I can't read this article. We are going to have to save it for posterity, because they're going to try and bury this shit eventually. Unbelievable. No, hold on.
He spoke to you about across those 11 interviews. There's a lot here, but just to tick through a few of them, she talked at length, it appears, about the Epstein scandal. She told you that she underestimated how potent that would be. She said that she thinks Attorney General Pam Bondi, quote, completely whiffed on appreciating how much conservative social media influencers cared about the Epstein files. She also spoke about her boss, about President Trump, and among a number of memorable comments, she described him as having, and I quote, an alcoholic's personality. Did she explain what she meant?
Yeah, which evidently, by the way, the president himself confirmed today. So always nice to have a fact check from the president.
To be clear, he gave an interview to the New York Post saying, I stay away from alcohol, but she's right. I do have an obsessive and addictive prone personality. He defended
badge of honor, apparently. Yeah. So what she meant by that, and her story is fascinating. This is not just a journey through the last 11 months, but really back to her childhood. She's the daughter of Pat Summerall, the famous sportscaster, who was an alcoholic, and she helped him to recover and staged interventions to get him treatment. She'd be the first to tell you, and she told me in this Vanity Fair two-part piece that she makes a specialty of difficult men. It began with Pat Summerall. She managed Ron DeSantis' winning gubernatorial campaign in 2018, and now famously, of course, got Donald Trump elected in 2024.
So she's the who's who of Republican grifter success? She got Ron DeSantis elected in Florida. We can thank her literally for Ron DeSantis, who we can thank for piloting the heartbeat bills, the immigration crackdowns, rigging primaries, trying to do the gerrymandering before it was cool, and of course, in modern times, the alligator Auschwitz, making and manufacturing and authorizing concentration camps on U.S. soil can literally be tied back to this woman. She is literally a kingmaker of fascist leadership. That is... Honestly, I'm impressed. I am actually impressed. The question becomes, why the fuck then are you burning that bridge that you built? You built it. You got him elected. So why are you now trying to throw him off the bridge? He came to her defense because she denied it. Adriana Smith, the one who was forced to carry a doomed pregnancy, determined now the baby is in poor health in NICU. We covered that in the beginning. But yes, that's Georgia. And it's fucking awful that we have now established a precedent for the state forcing labor upon a person who is otherwise dead, which sets the precedent for any other number of things. If she was just in a coma, if she wanted an abortion and couldn't have one, if she ended up paraplegic, if she ended up any number of things, the state has now been established can force you to gestate to term, or as close to term as they can make you. Help, they want me to vote for a bald Zionist. Vote for the other person. Didn't gas go down in price somewhere between 2021 and 25, and people said gas in their neck of the woods is still high. I mean, among other things. You want to be the good version of Susie Wiles? Well, if you're going to do a hit piece on me, don't deny it. Just go full throat. It's like, yeah, I threw him under the bus. I don't want you to deny it, okay?
So what she means by that is that Trump, while he doesn't drink, he does have this grandiose personality. He believes that there's nothing that he cannot accomplish. And it's reminiscent of her father when he was drinking.
What about on policy? Her criticism was striking of the dismantling of U.S. foreign aid. She told you, for example, no rational person could think, direct quote, no rational person could think the USAID process was a good one. Nobody.
She was devastating on the subject of Elon Musk's blowtorch approach to USAID. She said she was aghast, her word, not mine, when Musk proceeded to just burn it to the ground. Wiles didn't realize, appreciate at first what impact that would have on, for example, immunizations in Africa. Immediately began getting calls from relief officials, former government officials, did what she could to try to fix it. Trump in his first day had, with all his executive orders, had decreed not to cut life-saving stuff, but Musk just knocked it all down. So it's an extraordinary inside story of how that came down, and it's just a wild ride.
Chris,
I'm going to say this too. Did she throw Trump under the bus to try and spare herself the noose when this eventually comes crashing down? She's like, nope, I called it out. I'm just trying to keep myself alive from the retribution that this man clearly engages in and that I witnessed being carried out. Like, I think she's trying to save her own neck, to be honest. And that doesn't change the fact that how wild this whole thing is. I mean that I want to be a kingmaker like her. Yeah, but see, you can't use words like that either because we're trying to become president, not king. You know, in the UK, 3 bald judges ruled that calling a man bald can now be considered sexual harassment. That would be a fantastic video for tomorrow. And I did see that article, and I thought it was hilarious. And I know normally we don't do audio, but like this is just too good not to play.
This is not your first rodeo interviewing a White House chief of staff. You wrote a book about White House chiefs of staff. Were you surprising that this one, Susie Wiles, spoke so candidly on so many issues? Immigration, the vice president, just about every issue that's been on the table and in the headlines this year.
Yeah, stunning to me. And again, it's one of those cases where, as a reporter, in your career, lightning strikes sometimes, and this was one of those cases. You know, in my book about White House chiefs of staff, the gatekeepers, most of the interviews were with ex-chiefs who were out of office and could be a little bit more candid. My experience with senior White House officials, and I wrote a book about the Biden White House, is that they are always on not just background, but deep background. You have to get approval for every quotation. Not at all the case with Susie Wiles. She was on the record, freewheeling, and I give her tremendous credit for being willing to do that.
She was also
everything in the Vanity Fair piece was on the record. Every word she utters was on the record from beginning to end.
She's also on the record this morning in a post on X, dismissing this article as a disingenuously framed hit piece, and she says significant context was disregarded. Do you stand by your reporting?
Absolutely. And you know what's remarkable about that is that this is such a tell when you start talking about context and quote unquote framing, which I think somebody else mentioned. It reminds me of the Watergate era when the famous Washington Post editor Ben Bradley talked about the Nixon White House's denials. That's exactly what this is.
Your point being she doesn't deny any specific detail.
Not a single fact in the piece has been contested by the Trump White House because they know it's all true.
Chris Whipple talking about his...
Wow. So here's the thing. I am not going to pay for... I mean, I guess it's $1 a month per year plus a free tote. I'm not going to pay for that. I'm really not. Because, again, you shouldn't be paywalling something this significant. But I'm not going to lie. I am extremely tempted. I have never been tempted to break the paywall just to get access to a particular story. But I am tempted. Because this is such a break from the absolute adamantine unity of the right-wing extremism that we have been seeing since the Obama administration, building up to what we are seeing today. That it is this Vanity Fair interview is probably, if I can be so bold and arrogant as to say this phrase, this Vanity Fair interview, article, expose is probably a historical work. This is something that can and will be studied in the future and point at the downfall of Trump, assuming that actually happens, which if I have anything to say about it, it will. I am convinced that this is the same level, as he brought up with the New York Times reporter who broke the Watergate scandal. His name is remembered. I just am terrible with names and I don't remember it. And the Watergate scandal is remembered in history, and it is studied in history. It is mentioned in history at whatever age-appropriate level, right? I think this is one of those times. It is very rare that you can point at a specific event and say that will be in history books, but it seems as though we're getting a lot of them. October 7th, a historical moment. And then whenever it was that they revealed the Hannibal Directive and admitted to it, which I think was earlier this year, another historical moment, right? The bombings of the ships off in the Caribbean off of Venezuela. That's a historical moment, which is probably going to be the next page where it says, and then America invaded Venezuela and the world was very upset. But this is definitely one of those moments. And I am absolutely floored. I'm floored that we can actually point out historical events, historical moments, historical works as they are happening in real time, because that is just so impactful those events or those records are. Crazy. You want to be in the background. He was recording the interviews. You want the tote. It's juicy. Not Woodward and Bernstein. There are others. I'm just like, my political junkie knowledge is from 2015 onward and some of the major history of America, okay? Anna's political junkiness is probably including Woodward and Bernstein. That's why she's my chief of staff. That's why she's my helper. Oh, so yeah. No, then that's exactly what I'm talking about. I couldn't remember the name of the reporters, but that's who I was talking about. Okay. Wild.
The Trump administration is revealing new details about the White House ballroom construction ahead of the first hearing in the lawsuit to stop the project. In new court documents, the administration argues the 90,000 square foot ballroom would cause, quote, no significant impact to the surrounding environment. They're also promising to seek input from key agencies that review federal construction projects before above ground work begins next year. The National Trust for
Aren't they a little bit late for that? Because isn't the construction we're literally watching demolition occur. So you're going to stop them and what? Leave a demolished building in its wake? Or are you going to force them to rebuild it back to what it was? What's the point of this court filing? It's a little bit too late.
For Historic Preservation is suing the president and senior administration officials, saying they ignored the standard review process for federal building projects. The Justice Department argues the White House cannot meet the president's needs without the ballroom. The first hearing in the case is scheduled for later today. Process for federal building projects. The Justice Department argues the White House cannot meet the president's needs without the ballroom.
The Department of Justice is arguing that the president can't do his job without the ballroom. So the other 46 presidencies, including his first term, were just what then? Incomplete? Because they didn't have a ballroom? Are you fucking kidding me? It is so hard to take anything out of this administration seriously because of how contemptuously corrupt they are. Blatantly misdirecting, lying through their face, just making shit up as they go. And the fact that not a single solitary figure, not a single soul in this country is actually doing anything to stop them is beyond me. Exactly, the White House is already destroyed, while destroying a part of his for stupid ballroom. He also apparently can't do his job if a sign language interpreter does interpretation. They can't do their job if they use a font they say is woke. Sign language interpreters get involved, right? And that's the thing. Oh, we can't do this job with the Constitution in our way. Oh, we have to ignore due process for kidnapping immigrants off the streets because they're dangerous. Well, how the fuck do you know they're dangerous if you don't verify who the fuck they are first? Oh boy.
But first, new jobs numbers are shining a light on the state of the economy. Employers added 64,000 jobs in November, and the unemployment rate ticked up to 4.6%. Businesses, investors, and the Federal Reserve have been flying blind after the 43-day government shutdown halted the release of key economic data. Now, the weeks-delayed report is offering some long-awaited clarity. ABC News business reporter Alexis Christophers is here to crunch the numbers for us. Alexis, October's report was also just released, also delayed due to the shutdown. That showed the U.S. lost 105,000 jobs in October.
Right.
Is that a big surprise given the shutdown? And overall, what's the picture this is painting of the economy?
This is a mixed picture of the economy, but I think the trend shows that there is this gradual slowing in the job market. Let's tackle those October numbers first. 105,000 jobs lost. Most of that was because of government jobs that were lost during the government shutdown. We actually lost 162,000 jobs. Then there were some additional jobs. So when it all washes out, it was a loss of 105,000 jobs. We did not get the unemployment rate for October, though, because the government was unable to collect that data for that survey because of the shutdown. When you move to November, 64,000 jobs added, a bit more than the 50,000 expected. But the trouble here is the unemployment rate now ticking up to 4.6%, its highest level since September of 2021. And what this is telling us is a lot of companies are holding on to their workers, but they're not necessarily confident about hiring new workers. So what you're seeing is more people are now joining the search to look for a job. It's taking them longer to find that job, and in some instances, even to get an interview. Once again, we saw jobs added in construction and healthcare, social assistance, but again, troubling manufacturing, continuing to lose jobs despite President Trump's efforts to boost that industry with telling companies they need to start moving their manufacturing onshore.
So,
first of all, do we even buy the data from the Department of Labor to begin with? Let's just start there. Do we buy that there have been 64,000 jobs created in November? Do we buy that because it came from the DOL? Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that we do. 64,000 jobs created, but unemployment went up. I think I'm a fairly smart and intelligent individual. We got more jobs, but unemployment went up. Those numbers aren't supposed to go up together. If you create more jobs, unemployment is supposed to go down. And what is 0.3% anyway? I'm guessing 0.3% times the 155 million. That's the alleged employment market. Okay. 0.3% unemployment out of a 155 million job market, or job pool, labor pool, would be 465,000 people joined the unemployment market, but we made 64,000 jobs. Am I missing something here? That's not the right word, I guess. How many workers in America? Oh, that would make this number even worse. So let's just say in the middle, 168, nice round number. 0.3% would be 504,000 people entering into the unemployment statistic. 504,000 people entered into the unemployment rate. So how do you create 60? So realistically, then, we created 568,000 jobs, but 504,000 people lost their job. Would that, I mean, I'm okay. So if you created 64,000 jobs, but 504,000 people lost their job, like, I'm not understanding, like, there's a massive disparity here. So I'm pretty certain that we are not going to be trusting the Department of Labor. Also, it's the highest unemployment rate since the COVID era. And the COVID recovery era at that. And again, this is the full impact of the Trump economy. And again, these tariffs didn't bring manufacturing back to the United States at all. Because again, you can't bring manufacturing back to the United States immediately. It would take at least 10 years. At least 10 years. One, to clean out all of the debris from the former manufacturing sites that were abandoned. Then you have to procure the machinery. Then you have to ship it to the United States or manufacture it in the United States. Then you have to ship it to the site. Then you have to have it installed. Then you have to have it tested. Then you have to go through the hiring process. That takes a shit ton of time and money and involvement. So could it be done earlier than 10 years? Sure. But it would still be a bare minimum of a 2-year process. Bare minimum to get up and running. But you would be spending 10 times or 20 times the amount of money to get it that way. So that's why the 10-year bracket. If you're really going to bring manufacturing back in America, that is a long-term investment. And you're not even incentivizing companies to do it. You're threatening them to do that. So, mixed. Yeah. And no president has ever required everybody to get an interview if they apply. Then employers have to do an interview for all applicants. The logic of the recent jobs reports are absolutely illogical. Yeah. There's 3 videos on this though. Let's do CBS.
That is the opening bell on Wall Street, getting the honor today, the president.
The opening bell of Wall Street. Why are we reporting on Wall Street when we're talking about the jobs reports being in the absolute shitter? The fact that people continue, that these news networks continue to construe Wall Street with the economy is asinine. It's actually infuriating. It's insulting as a thinking human being. As an intelligent species, you're going to continue to insult my intelligence by associating the stock market with actual economic reality. God damn. Are you going to actually get to the fucking...
Investment officer of Harbor Capital of the exchange. But joins me now to talk about this. Megan, good to see you.
Wow.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
So we were having a conversation earlier with one of our correspondents about the jobs report. Let me get your take on what we saw this morning.
Well, I think the data kind of shows that the Fed was likely warranted in its pause. We did see that payrolls held up, which was nice, and a little bit higher than estimates even, but we did see that unemployment rate tick up, and it's been at the highest rate since 2021 at this point. So this is something worth watching very carefully, and it's one of the key stats that I think Fed officials...
Again, I'm not... Okay, so it's only 2% only. I'm still not understanding how unemployment rate can go up, but that ultimately creates more jobs. Like, you're not explaining this.
Economists and even investors are really watching these days because it kind of gives you a pulse on both labor supply and demand. And we've had that curious balance happening for most of the year, but it seems like that's starting to fade. And this is something that I think Fed officials in particular are going to be watching very carefully as we go into January and the new year.
So let's talk about retail sales, which have pretty much...
They're seriously not going to talk about that? Okay, I guess. Oh, GOP healthcare bill.
Lawmakers are reaching a deal on healthcare because Affordable Care Act subsidies are set to expire at the end of the month. The House is expected to vote this week on a Republican-led healthcare bill. Yesterday, President Trump was asked what he wants to see happen.
I want all money going to the people and let the people buy their own health care. It'll be
I want people to buy their own health care. I want the money to go to the people, which is what a subsidy is. And then I want people to buy their own health care, which is already unaffordable. Let's try this again.
Was asked what he wants to see happen.
I want all money going to the people and let the people buy their own health care.
Okay, that's exactly what he said, right? I didn't get that wrong, right? I want all the money to go to the people, and I want them to buy their own health care. buddy, that's the Affordable Care Act. That's what a subsidy is. Granted, if we're being really technical, that's what universal healthcare is. The people with their money buy healthcare through taxes that the government then funds and provides. Health insurance isn't healthcare. Health insurance is a middleman that prevents you from getting healthcare by paying them first. You can't make this shit up. You really fucking can't. But we got 5 minutes left. So let's hit this next one instead.
As we count down to the new year, every day this week, we'll take a look back at some of the major stories that drove the news cycle in 2025. And we're going to begin with the Supreme Court. CBS News legal contributor and Loyola Law School professor Jessica Levinson joins me now. So, Jessica, the court issued some 67 opinions this term, from universal injunctions to restrictions on youth access to gender-affirming care, the question of state authority in environmental regulation, religion and charter schools. What stood out to you?
I think those four really stood out to me. So when we think about the last year of the Supreme Court, in terms of the merits docket, I think we have to mention that big case dealing with not really birthright citizenship, but actually nationwide injunctions. The question of what remedy can a federal judge give when people challenge an executive order. And the Supreme Court said the remedy cannot be that a single district court judge can say that the executive order cannot be applied anywhere in the country. That's a big case because it deals with essentially every area where an executive order could touch it and that executive order could be challenged. Then, as you mentioned, Lindsay, obviously big cases dealing with transgender rights, that Skermeti case where there was a state that essentially prohibited certain puberty blockers and hormone treatments for transgender youth. That's coming up again, a different iteration of that case. That same issue is coming up again before the court this term. Big cases last term dealing with the First Amendment. There was another case, just to wrap this up, dealing with parents' ability to tell a public school that they must be able to opt their children out of certain educational materials, including those involving LGBT families and transgender people.
And Jessica, we also saw...
That's not a very happy note to end on, is it? Let's cover that again on Thursday, maybe a little bit earlier in the day. I mean, I guess we don't have to do a recap, I guess. I'm just saying it is pretty disturbing that the Supreme Court said, hey, anytime the administration does something bad, lower courts can't do anything about it, and individuals have to individually sue the federal government to stop the illegal thing that the federal government is doing. Like, again, the erosion of powers and checks and balances to give dictatorial powers to the executive is a slow and painful process in the United States of America, which might very well be a testament to the strength of our Constitution, that it is taking so much time, that it is such a strong democratic tool, that it is taking this much concerted effort to undermine it. But the fact of the matter is, it is still being undermined. But I would like to end on a high note.
There he goes. This morning, groundbreaking mind-to-movement technology, giving people with spinal cord injuries, like Angie Donaldson, the ability to move and even feel again for the first time in years.
You're going to play the piano with your brain.
Yes. It's done using a cutting-edge brain-computer interface, or BCI, at the University of Pittsburgh and UPMC Rehabilitation Institute.
The BCI can actually record activity from their brain, interpret patterns of activity to understand the intent that the person's trying to communicate, and then turn that into a signal for an external device.
The hope is that someday BCIs can help people with spinal cord injuries at home by restoring lost mobility or feeling. Angie is the newest study participant. She was paralyzed from the chest down after a fall down the stairs in 2019, her life changing instantly.
Your independence, it's essentially gone.
I have to rely on someone to help me get in and out of bed, shower, get dressed. It's a lot.
The injury traumatic and isolating, but Angie, now 52, has found solace here at the lab. She says it gives her purpose.
I'm inspired again. I feel hopeful again because this technology is just going to get better. And if they can get the technology of sensation going in our hands, eventually it could be your bladder, it could be your legs. We're just starting.
39-year-old Nathan Copeland can use his brain to move this robotic arm. In fact, he's the longest working study participant at the lab, 11 years.
Firm grip.
And now, since the car accident that paralyzed him from the chest down 21 years ago, Nathan is once again able to experience the sensation of touch.
It feels like my middle finger.
People have really focused mostly on the ability to move, but we know from lots of evidence that if you can't feel things, you really can't move effectively.
I think it's kind of definitely dreamlike, just thinking about something and it's happening.
For Good Morning America, Will Reeve, ABC News, Pittsburgh.
Just incredible technology, Nathan.
Okay. I have a little mixed feelings on that. Invasive brain surgery with major plugs to go into these apparati to even be able to move them in the first place. Secondly, and maybe it's because we've been dealing with too much dystopian nightmare nonsense, but secondly, the fact that it seems like they're developing programs and software and algorithms being mapped to the brain and the neural network to interact with robotics. Does that sound familiar? Like, click this and then these images to say I'm not a robot and determine that these are the things. And now we know that has been revealed, that has been leaked, that those CAPTCHA things were literally used as case studies to help drone pilots and AI identify targets in combat zones. Wasn't quite the warm and fuzzy, at least for me, because the implications seem to be implicating. All right. On that note, that is our stream for today. Thank you for joining us. My name is Samuel Ronan. I'm running for Congress, but I am your next president. We stream, as you can see, Tuesday through Thursday, 7 to 10, and we cover world events, local events, politics, and news generally. Join us as often as you are able. Help us build the stream. Help us build the platform. Like, share, and subscribe. And have a great rest of your evening, and we will see you tomorrow. On that note, Samuel Ronan, your president, out.